Very good. Thank you, Wendy. Let's go ahead and get started. I call the County Planning Commission meeting to order. It's May 6, 2025, and it's 7 o'clock. I'd like to start off the meeting with a prayer and a pledge. So if everybody would stand up. Father, we're gathered here today to share the responsibility to serve our community. We ask you for your wisdom and guidance as we deliberate on important decisions that will affect the lives of the citizens of Elbert County. May we approach our tasks with integrity and a commitment to doing what is right. Help us to listen with open minds to diverse perspectives, and may our discussions and decisions be rooted in fairness, respect, and compassion. Again, we thank you for the opportunity to serve and for your guidance that you offer. We also like to ask for protection for those that serve our community and our nation. Amen. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Just as a reminder, everybody, please turn off your cell phones. Very good. Wendy, roll call, please.
Kevin Kirkwood. Kevin Kirkwood. Absent. Robert Politek.
Here.
Van Sands.
Here.
Dee Dee Schott Grace.
Present.
John Gresham. John Gresham. Absent. Nicole Hunt.
Present.
Kyle DiNardo.
Present.
Dan McCallan.
Present.
Diana Edstrom.
Here.
Vice Chairman, you have a quorum.
Very good. Thank you very much. CDS staff, do you have any reports?
The first report for you is just an update on projects that you've heard. The BOCC heard the WF real estate rezone on the 23rd of April, and that project was approved. And then your county attorney, I believe, also has an update.
Yeah, I've been asked to provide a report from the Board of County Commissioners. It's obviously my understanding that a large-scale view on potential regulatory updates has been discussed by the Planning Commissioners. There has been notes taken on kind of the large-scale views of what potential regulation updates are in mind by the Planning Commission. However, those need to be in draft form for you to take a look at to ensure that those are in line with what the Planning Commission is thinking. Not only that, but having in draft form potential regulation updates also allows the public an opportunity to review potential changes and an opportunity to be heard. So with respect to some of the more simple regulation updates, the planning department, myself, will be undertaking some drafting of what you'd call some of the more simple ones, even some of the more simple ones, such as changing a vegetation requirement as far as making it a requirement from 2 years to 3 years or something along those lines, oftentimes is referenced multiple times within the regulations, not just within one section. So the cross-referencing needs to occur, and the draft language needs to be finalized. At that point, the ones that are capable of being brought to the Planning Commission will be brought to the Planning Commission to review those in draft form. At that point, you'll have an opportunity to vote on those, and then those will go to the Board of County Commissioners for their consideration at that point in time. So that's going to be the process that we're going to be going through moving forward on that. Any other questions?
Just a quick question, at least for me. Don't know if anybody else has a question. So you say draft form. So basically like a red line of the existing regulations and validate that the individual sections that could be potentially impacted are all covered for, correct?
Yeah, that's what we're looking at doing right now. Correct.
What's the timeline to get that done? Do you think?
I don't have a timeline in front of you right now. What I can tell you is we're already kind of looking at the sections that may be impacted by that. But as I said, if we're talking about the EDZ or if we're talking about vegetation requirements, you need to go through each section, see if that's referenced, and then you're going to have to do it on a discrete basis. If you're talking about a change in one section, that's one of the other things that the Board of County Commissioners has asked for, is that each potential change is going to be considered on its own. Some of the more comprehensive updates are going to need assistance with folks that do it for a profession. That's all they do is regulation updates. I've already spoken with the Board of County Commissioners about the possibility of bringing folks in that could do something a little more substantive or comprehensive as far as regulation updates. And when we have more information on where we're at with bringing somebody on board that's what they do, we'll provide another update to the Planning Commission on that.
So this is going to take months?
It could, yes.
I have some questions.
Go ahead.
Chair. I'm wondering, County Attorney, where in the regs that it lays out that process that you described. Can you direct us to that?
Regulation updates are the equivalent of passing new laws or changing laws, which requires notice and the opportunity to be heard. That means that the public has to see what the updates would be able to comment on the potential consequences or benefits of those updates. Those would then go through that process and then go to the Board of County Commissioners in order to provide those updates to the laws or the regulations that this county follows.
So do you know where in the regulations that is?
That is the process by which regulations are updated.
Do you know in our county regs?
What I have done is I've taken a look at the requirements for regulation updates, the notice and opportunity to be heard requirements for regulation updates, in particular, those that include zoning updates. And that does require going through the Planning Commission, but it does require draft form so that they can be reviewed and they can be discussed by the public.
Where were you looking for that information, I guess, is what I'm asking you.
Statute and case law?
So CRS, code?
Code and case law, that's correct.
I wonder if you could, it sounds like you don't have that information with you right now, but that's something I would like to see what exactly you were looking at as your guide there for the county. I looked into this a little bit myself, and if you look at Article 3, Section M, it says amendments to the Elbert County zoning regulations, and that's within the Elbert County zoning regs. And it talks about intent, procedure, process, notice of hearing, and amendments and clarification and definitions. And I just wanted to bring out to your attention that under procedure, it talks about amendments proposed shall be submitted to the Planning Commission for its review and recommendation prior to any action at a public hearing by the Board of County Commissioners. In addition, it says further on, with regard to notice, that at least 30 days notice of time and place of public hearing before the Board of County Commissioners shall be given in the newspapers, and the notice shall read as specified. And so I just wanted to clarify that according to our zoning regs, and I do agree with due process, anyone who's been paying attention to me since I've been on the board with regard to due process with notice, I think this is really important. I'd love to have engagement because this is a legislative topic. It's something that the Planning Commission can actually talk to the public about because it's legislative. It's not an ex parte communication for you guys to say, we would like you guys to update the zoning regs in such and such way. So I think that's something that's great to have public comment and discussion over. But I just wanted to point out that in our zoning regs, it actually lays out a process that's slightly different than what you are outlining. So I'm trying to understand what the process really is, or if this is just how the county has done it in the past, but not necessarily how it has to be handled moving forward. Do you have a response, Mr.
I
Greer?
believe I have provided my response, in particular, especially with things that do involve zoning. It does have to go through the Planning Commission. The way that we have done it in the past has always been to go through the Planning Commission in draft form. I don't know how you're supposed to vote on something where the language has not been laid out and what the potential consequences are with specific language. I've also been requested by the Board of County Commissioners, when looking at regulation updates, to provide them in discrete packages so that each potential change is reviewed on its own. And the process that we intend to follow is to have that draft language prepared, reviewed, and ready for the Planning Commission, but also out there in the public so that the public can view that and that they can make comments on the pros, the cons, the consequences, the concerns, and the potential good things about a regulation update. So that's how we intend to do it.
Sure, and I just, for the public's sake, if they weren't paying attention in the past, we had a working session where we discussed changes to zoning regulations, and in that open working session, we talked about what things that could be changed right away. It's our understanding that the county commissioners would like to do rolling regulation updates, not one big massive one in 6, 7, 8, 9 months, but to be continually updating. So if that's still there, the majority of the commissioners' desire, then it's my understanding that as we have these work sessions, we need to be redlining the material right away so that we can honor the requests of the Board of County Commissioners and begin moving these regulation changes through. And that's all I wanted to say, Chair.
So that was going to be my follow-up question. Would it be beneficial to have a working session to be able to expedite, the changes, or at least get that language formulated, allow then the CDS team to go through and find all the instances of that particular, request change? Will that help in making this, go a little bit faster?
I think it certainly could help.
Okay.
As I mentioned, there are folks out there, firms, that sort of thing, that are more associated with comprehensive and more complicated updates to regulations, perhaps adding new regulations that haven't been presented as part of the county regulatory scheme before. I know that planning, CDS, and the board, I'm speaking the Board of County Commissioners, is looking at bringing someone on board with regard to that. So I think that would also help a little bit, speed things along. The process by which we're going to be doing this and the speed by which we're going to be doing this would be assisted by that as well. So that's something we're taking a look at.
Excuse me.
Go ahead.
The entire first paragraph of what you said, I could not hear at all. So I'm sure no one on the channel could hear it either. So could you repeat, please, your preface that you stated everything?
Sure. I believe the question was if there is draft language that's ready to go, that's being proposed, would that help speed up the process? I think it could certainly help.
No, I mean your original statement that you originally made.
About the process?
Well, the first thing out of his mouth, whatever that was, I couldn't hear a word he was saying. So why?
Yeah, I believe the question that was posed to me was
No,
if,
I'm not talking about the question, sweetheart. I'm talking about when you started speaking. You said that we were going to do X, Y, and Z or whatever, telling us what you're going to be doing. We couldn't hear that. So if you could repeat what you were trying to get across
Sure.
in the beginning, that would be awesome.
Yeah, I'd be happy to. I believe the first part of my comment was a response saying that having draft language certainly could speed up the process. The second part of what I was talking about was about finding a firm or expert that what they do is they look at comprehensive regulation updates, some of the more comprehensive or complicated aspects of what new laws are out there, what new regulations need to be implemented, some of the changes to existing regulations that might be pretty comprehensive and involve multiple parts of our regulations that are currently written, bringing them on board, and with their expertise, taking a look at other updates, and they can provide the assistance on draft language as well. So that certainly could provide an opportunity to speed that process up.
And are you looking at any use of AI at this point? It's been my experience very recently that that can save an awful lot of time for individuals if they are able to. AI can definitely tell you where it's mentioned anywhere in the entire document. So is there any thought process to engage in some help from the AI?
I don't think there's been any specific discussions about implementing an AI component. To the extent that that is part of the process, that these firms or regulation experts that assist counties and municipalities with their updates utilize that. My guess is they're probably at least utilizing some parts of that.
I would imagine, and I
yeah.
would imagine that we could utilize that ourselves and not have the exorbitant expense that some of these other places are going to charge us to. We haven't had real good luck with some of the people we've contracted in the past. They haven't worked to the scope of the work and provided the entire scope, like with the water plan. So I would encourage us to look at some of that in-house as well. That's just my comment for that.
I appreciate that. I made note of it.
Hey, Bart, maybe it would help all of us here if by the next meeting then, if we can have a timeline based upon the hiring of consultants, the timeline for draft language associated with the simpler amendments that we made a recommendation on as compared to maybe the more complicated ones that are going to require the consultation from outside resources. I think that would help us all understand how soon we can be presenting something and have each one of those stand, like you said, on their own merit with the county commissioners for them to approve or disapprove.
Yeah, I can certainly look into that.
All right, thank you. Anything else from CDS? All right, at this time, I'd like to open up the floor for citizens' comment, and the citizens' comment section of our meeting is for anything that is not being discussed tonight, any applications tonight. So if you have anything you want to talk about that is outside of the applications, please come forward.
Don Gray, 16,000 Highway 86. Hey, I'm on the board of the ECA. As you're well aware of, Excel's Power Pathway project, we've had public notices posted for dates for public hearings. The ECA, through an open records request, has been given a copy of the application, and the ECA's stance on this is we're going to continue to educate the public as it goes forward in the process and encourage individuals to come forward and speak and or write emails to the CDS in order to bring this whole project into light of what's going to happen. Hopefully, you'll receive a packet sooner than later that you'll have a chance to review. It's pretty extensive package, one can imagine. So hopefully with enough time frame, you'll be able to review that and do what's right for the county as we continue to ask for that. Appreciate your time.
Thank you. Any other comments? All right, we'll close this section of open public comment. Next thing on the agenda is approval of meeting minutes. And has everybody had a chance to review? There's 4 for us to review and approve tonight. Has everybody had a chance to review them? We will approve them on a one-by-one basis. So I'll entertain a motion to approve the minutes for April 1st, 2025.
So moved.
I'll second.
Did you get that, Wendy? All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Opposed? Abstained?
Diana's abstaining.
All right. And the second one is consideration of the meeting minutes for April 15th, 2025. Motion to approve.
So moved.
All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
And Diana Edstrom abstains.
And all those opposed? All right. Next one is for the meeting minutes on April 16th, 2025. Motion to approve.
So moved.
All those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Abstain?
Diana Edstrom abstains.
And then the last one is for consideration of the meeting minutes on April 22nd, 2025. Motion to approve.
So moved.
All those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? And abstain.
Diana Edstrom abstains.
All right. Now we'll move to the public hearing. Just to give everybody in the audience, both physically and as well as anybody watching on the website, we are a pseudo-judiciary panel. We're here to take a look at the application as it pertains to the current rules and regulations and have a presentation by both the CDS staff as well as by the applicant. After that, we will take public comment. We ask you that, when you stand up, you give us your name, your address, and try to limit your public comment to about 5 minutes. And from there, the applicant has a chance to respond to any public comment as well as comments from the board themselves. We will then have typically a discussion amongst the board members, and at that point, the public comment is closed, and then we'll have a motion to do one of 3 things. We can approve and provide a recommendation to the Board of County Commissioners to approve. We can also provide a recommendation to deny to the county commissioners, or we can approve with certain stipulations. And that's typically how each application is adjudicated. All right, with that, we'll start off with the first one, which is case number SUR 2024-7211. And Danny, you're making the presentation?
Yes, thank you, Commissioners. Good evening, Planning Commission. My name is Danny Klebanner, and I'm a land use planner here with Elbert County. Tonight, I will be presenting the Stonewall Bed and Breakfast and Events Special Use by Review, and that is case SUR 2024-7211. All right, a brief summary of this project. It is, again, a special use by review request. The site location is 7211 County Road 98 in Elbert, Colorado. The site size is about 1.5 acres, and the current zoning is residential 1, R1. The request here is for a special use that will allow a bed and breakfast that will also host weddings. This project began in June of 2024, June 12th, with a pre-application meeting. It was followed by a community meeting August 5th, 2024, and the formal application was submitted December 10th. The first review cycle was December 10th to December 31st, and a second review cycle was February 5th to February 25th of 2025. All notice requirements have been met per Elbert County zoning regulations, and that requires a quarter-mile radius mailing, a submission to Ranchland News, and an on-site sign posting. So the public sign was posted April 17th, the quarter-mile radius was mailed April 19th, and the publication in Ranchland News was April 17th of 2025. All right, here's a look at the whole county. It's pretty tough to see the location here, but we'll zoom in. It is just outside of the community of Elbert, about 1,000 feet from the border of the community of Elbert. Here you can see it with the star down there. It's, again, about 12 miles southeast of Elizabeth, about 10 miles southwest of the town of Kiowa. Moving closer in to the property, here is a zoning map. The subject property is 1.48 acres and is currently zoned residential 1. Historically, the land has been used as a church, and later it was actually used as an auto repair shop. There are 2 properties, both owned by Harmony Land and Cattle, that are next to this, adjacent to this property, and both are over 300 acres. Neighboring properties to this special use and zoned agriculture A. All right, here is an aerial, and I'm going to give a little bit of site description here. It's a 1.5 acre property with a historic church building, a residence, and accessory structures on the property. There's no floodplain within the property, no wetlands on the property, and for access, the special use will be accessed off of County Road 98, and there is an agreement in place with the neighboring property for parking to provide some room for these events and the parking that is necessary. The access to the parking lot and to the property must be built up to Elbert County Public Works standards upon approval. Moving a little closer into the property, here you can see an aerial. The large building right in the middle there is the house, 2-story frame house, and right in front of that, so just below that, kind of elongated rectangle, is the church, and then there are some accessory buildings on the property. Moving to the street level view, here's a look at the property. There's you can see the Sacred Heart Church with its Gothic Revival architecture, and that accessory building, the garage, can be seen from this street level image. All right, now getting into the project summary. The request for the bed and breakfast will be a year-round bed and breakfast. The employees are the property owners, and the 2-story house and cottage will serve the B&B guests. Moving into the special events portion, it's primarily weddings, and May to October would be the primary season, with November through April as the secondary season. Hours for weddings, 1 p.m. to 10 p.m. Employees, the 2 owners who are on the property, and possibly a couple of part-time to help with assembly, wedding setup, tear down, and other duties involved with the weddings. There would be a 120 guest maximum for any event, with 75 people being the average for a wedding. The parking in the adjacent lot for these events, no parking will be allowed on County Road 98. The applicants will have portable bathrooms for every wedding and purchase bulk water to serve the guests. Here's a look at the site plan, and I have some things colorized here for you. On the left, there's the parking area on the Harmony Land and Cattle property. In the middle, you have the primary residence, which is used for the bed and breakfast, and then off to the side is the small cottage, also for bed and breakfast use. In the pink, those are the 3 buildings primarily used for the special events, including the church, 3-car garage, and shed, which get into the different uses for these buildings. The gravel parking lot has 36 spaces, Sacred Heart Church with a 120-person capacity, and a commercial entrance required and permitted by Elbert County Public Works. A few more details that are important here. A cistern will provide water for the special use. The existing well will not be used for the water supply. And this cistern ties into the main residence and the cottage residence, as well as the church. And that shed that you could see prior, that's the photo booth area. The 3-car garage would be the dining and dancing area. All right, moving forward to the project review and referral. Again, it went on its first referral from December 10th through the 31st of 2024. The applicant responded to all relevant comments. The main revisions included updates to the SUR exhibit, the parking plan, and infrastructure to support this special use. A primary driver being the changes for water and clarifying with the Division of Water Resources what would be acceptable for this use. So that was the main thing that led to a more extended timeline on this project. The second referral was from February 5th to the 25th of 2025, and that was limited to Elbert County Public Works, Elbert County Public Health, Division of Water Resources, and the applicant finalized all plans for access, water, and sanitation for the special use during the subsequent referrals. All these agencies were contacted, including our assessor's office, GIS analyst, engineer, road and bridge, public health, sheriff's office, emergency management, our building department, Elbert County treasurer, Colorado Department of Local Affairs, Colorado Parks and Wildlife, the Division of Water Resources, Elbert Fire, Elbert School District, and Mountain View Electric Association. For public comments, there was a community meeting with 1 resident. The other 2 sign-ins were our county planner and her father attending the meeting. There was concerns from that resident about application process and zoning change. No public comments have been received following the community meeting phase. All right, so all special use requests are judged on the following 8 criteria from Elbert County Zoning Regulations, Article 3E5. And these are summarized on your sheet. But the first is that the use is in harmony and compatible with the surrounding area and neighborhood. This special use by review will revitalize a historic church building and allow public to access this unique Elbert landmark. The Sacred Heart Church and its Gothic revival architecture will be the main gathering place for the weddings. This special use is located outside of the community of Elbert, and its distance serves as a buffer to the town. The business fits well with the agriculture and residential mix in the area, providing a gathering place close to town but far enough from neighboring residences that potential noise from events is not a primary concern. Number 2, or B, the use will not have an undue burden on available infrastructure. Elbert County Public Works Department reviewed this application and has no objections. The leased parking area will eliminate parking on County Road 98. Entrances to the parking area and the property must be built to Elbert County Public Works standards. C, the use will not unduly increase traffic congestion or burden the existing road system. Our Road and Bridge Department Foreman, Jay Wall, reviewed the application and had no objections to this special use. D, the use will not cause significant air, odor, water, noise, or light pollution. The uses proposed are not believed to cause significant forms of pollution. The applicant will end weddings at about 10 p.m. and will limit lighting to what is necessary to navigate the property. Will use bulk water and bottled water to serve customers of the B&B and event guests, and limit smoking to designated areas. Sanitation requirements will be met. All sanitation requirements will be met. Elbert County Public Health Department reviewed this application. The applicant provided up-to-date information for their on-site wastewater treatment system and provided an additional soils report for a potential new system. Until the new wastewater treatment system is built, the applicant will use portable bathrooms and provide receipts of the portable bathrooms to Elbert County Public Health. Finally, the F, G, and H. The use will be adequately landscaped, buffered, and screened. There are no new buildings proposed, and the neighborhood is familiar with the historic church, though it has been unused for some time. The wedding use fits well with the neighborhood. It will not be a negative site. G, the use will not otherwise be detrimental to the health, safety, or welfare of the present or future inhabitants of Elbert County. This use will not be detrimental to Elbert County residents. The Elbert Fire Protection District has reviewed the application and walked the property and has determined that all requirements have been met. And finally, H, supplemental standards are met. No supplemental standards apply to this application. With that, based on the review of the approval criteria found in Elbert County Zoning Regulations, Article 3, E5, and the findings in the staff report, staff recommends the Planning Commission to recommend approval with conditions for the Stonewall Bed and Breakfast and Events SUR. And the following are the conditions of approval that we recommend. The first is that the applicant will be required to remove the public hearing signs within 7 days of a decision by the Board of County Commissioners. Second, that special use by review will not become effective until all fees are paid, conditions of approval are met, and the special use by review exhibit is recorded, and recordation of all appropriate documentation to occur within 180 days of Board of County Commissioner approval. 4, installation of a cistern that is in accordance with Rule 11 of the Water Well Construction Rules from the Colorado Division of Water Resources. 5, retain receipts for bulk water purchases and provide these receipts when requested by Elbert County staff. 6, construct the access to the property and parking area that meets the requirements of Elbert County Public Works. And finally, 7, provide copies of portable restroom receipts to Elbert County Public Health for each event. That concludes my presentation for the Stonewall Special Use Review. If you have any questions, that's great. And the applicants are here to offer any additional information.
Would the applicant like to come up and provide any color? And just as a reminder, please state your name and address.
Really just say, thanks, Danny.
For the record, your address, please.
7211 County Road 98, Elbert, Colorado, 80106. Same address you guys saw up there. We actually live on the property, so. But I think the only comment would be that, number one, Danny, you did a spectacular job. It was a little odd for me to think that somebody else would, get up and mention all the things we've done and where we've went and what we've went through, but you did spectacular. I don't even think there was an error. I bet if we replay it, we won't even find an error. That was good. So I don't think I can really add to anything that he shared, but I'm happy to answer any questions you might have in addition to what he shared, even though I think Danny could probably do a killer job because that was really well done. So.
All right, very good. Thank you. Board, are there any questions for staff or for the applicant?
Yeah, I have one question. Approximately how many B&B special event facilities do we have in Elbert County?
B&B? That's a good question. In terms of special events, I have a little more information on that. I'd say there's probably 5 to 10 wedding venues in the county currently. Although I'm not familiar with every single one. I'm aware in the last, 7 years there's maybe been 3 or 4 approved. So I imagine there's a couple additional existing. But
I'll
I don't
just
have the exact numbers.
I'll just add for you, I do have a working list of all SURs since the year 2000. I don't have that pulled up, but I could take a look and follow up with the commission if that's something that you're interested in. Only if it's an SUR. I don't have specific data on all uses outlined at the moment.
I would say very few B&Bs, especially with the change in our regulations that allow for vacation rentals on properties without the B&B approval. So I would say there's very few B&Bs, Airbnbs, maybe more, but B&Bs few in the county. So there aren't a ton of places for visitors to stay in the county.
Thank you. Yeah, this is, I was just wondering, it appears that your basic plan is to have have weddings, not so much have people stay there. Is that correct?
Correct, yeah.
Yeah, it didn't appear that you had too many beds.
We really don't. It's good for 2 people or 2 rooms for people to stay overnight. So traditionally, if you think of a bed and breakfast, like we went to some in our life, it might have 8 or 10 rooms in it.
Sure.
But this is designed for really 2 guests, or I should say 2 rooms, 2 people, husband and wife or a couple per room. So we don't think we'll ever have more than 4 guests staying on the place. So
One of the problems that we have out here, and this is from the economic development group that I am part of, we just don't have that many motels, hotels out here to house people in the county. So look forward to having more and more bed and breakfasts because that will help us in terms of economic development.
thank you.
Thanks. Yeah, I do have some questions. Thanks for clarifying that you're going to be staying on the property, because that was one of the questions I had. Of course, Van Sands mentioned it, but with only 2 bedrooms in the house itself, where are you guys actually living?
There's only 2 rooms that we're actually going to rent out.
Oh, I see. So you do have more bedrooms in the house. It's just 2 that are going.
We actually have 5 daughters. We're empty nesters now, so we do have extra rooms, but my wife told me that nobody's allowed to stay on the first floor. The fire chief that came out goes, nobody can stay in the basement. So we still have some basement room and some rooms on the first floor for our family and friends to stay in. But there's 2 other rooms that are really, really good for stayovers.
Yeah. I do want to say to staff, thanks for including photographs, because that was something that we didn't see in our packet. It really is a beautiful spot. Oh. I imagine you're going to have some really beautiful weddings there, and that it will attract people.
If people find out about Elbert, we lived in Colorado Springs. We never even heard of the town called Elbert. Nobody ever invited us out here, but we raised our daughters in Colorado Springs. So we're hopeful that people will actually come to Elbert. We live here now, so we'd call ourselves citizens of your county and of the city of Elbert, but we don't know. We hope people will come out here. Yeah.
So wanted to just clarify, maybe this is a better question for staff. When we do wedding venues, when we approve of wedding venues, is it usually through the use of an SUR, or is there a rezone to commercial property?
Typically, we've done our wedding venues through SUR. That's more of an event center SUR. This, because it had the mixed bed and breakfast with special events, that's how we classified it.
Okay, because I have seen where other county, you might end up seeing a lot of SURs that are more kind of like one-off event type of projects, maybe a festival or some kind of a fair. And for something like this, which is like just year-round kind of commercial use, that is typical for Elbert County, is to use it, do that through the SUR, at least for wedding venues.
So for wedding venues, I've only seen them approved in our county through SUR.
Okay. All right, that's helpful to know. And then just wanted to clarify, because I know in your in the application, it talked about 2 days a month being the frequency that you would potentially be having these weddings on your 2 days a month, every month, year round. And just wanted to clarify that that's what you guys want and that's what makes you happy.
That would be great. That would be 24 weddings a year. I don't know that we'll ever get to that high, but again, I don't really know. With social media out there, maybe the town of Elbert with a really cool white old church building, maybe we'd get there. We'd actually be pretty happy with one wedding a weekend during the summer season. So maybe that's 10 or 15, but we would take on 2 a month, no problem.
Okay, so then you kind of imagine that being potentially 2 different weekends, probably not back-to-back days.
Yeah.
So more like 4 days of bed and breakfast, staying, but 2 days of weddings. Is that more accurate?
With having 5 daughters, 3 of them already being married, they chose Saturdays. So Saturday seems to be a pretty hot day, but we don't know. Somebody might choose a Sunday, somebody might choose a weekday. But I think you're about right. I think 1 on a weekend, 2 on a really good weekend. That might be 4 or 5 times throughout the summer. But I really don't know. I mean, the dream would probably be to have 1 on like a Friday or maybe a Thursday and a Saturday and do that for 10 weeks throughout the summer. That'd give 20 weddings. That would be a pretty good for us. We really don't desire to run it year round, even though we say it's year round, because we're pretty busy with, other things. We have 5 daughters, adult children, so we travel a whole lot. But this is where we live now, and while we're living there, we think what a blessing and how cool would it be to open it up for weddings. But your question's a great one. I mean, I guess if it really took off, maybe there would be 30 weddings there in a summer season, and maybe there would be 1 on a Friday, Saturday, Sunday, right in a row. I don't even get that vibe yet.
Okay.
But so far, what seems like people are asking and inquiring about like Saturdays or Sundays.
Okay. And I guess this question is for staff, but I know in our packet, it kind of just talked about that frequency year round. But if he's saying, gosh, the demand is high for the summer mostly, not the winter, under like our SUR, is that still something that can be satisfied like in just short seasons? Because right at the end of the day, what we're approving is a certain number of weddings and days for special use review. So if that were to be that busy during the summer and then have a lot of busyness for the rest of the year, that would be more than what we're talking about for this special use review. So just wanting to clarify, is there flexibility for the applicant if their summer's really busy and they can pack it all in? Do they kind of have a limit as to how many they have per year based on this SUR?
I don't believe there's a limit. It talks about primarily this many days and busy seasons, but it doesn't have a hard limit. It's the SUR would run year round. It's the area would be always B&B and wedding, use. Yeah.
I don't know if that's true. I mean, if that's true, then the use by special review doesn't mean anything because it means unlimited use. So if we're talking about a certain amount of use, that's what we're talking about, not an unlimited amount of use.
So just to clarify, so the use by special review allows a use. We have had instances before this commission where an applicant did have a limitation, and there was a limitation included, in their request, and that is what was approved. There does not have to be a timeline or a limitation. The SUR can be approved to allow a special use. Special doesn't mean limited in time, right? It's not a temporary use. We do have a separate temporary use permit, right? That's limited to 60 days per year and things like that. But this would allow the use on this property.
Okay.
With no timeline unless you all or the board included as a condition of approval a time limit.
I see. Yeah, I guess it is confusing because the way it's presented in the packet is that there's an expectation of this many days per month, year round. So that sounds like we're approving something much more specific than unlimited. Is there like language here that says unlimited use, so it could be more clear?
So on the notes for the exhibit, it provides guidelines of how the property will be used with the guest maximum, the hours, things like that, primary days, secondary days. So it says, weddings primarily from May to October, secondary season, November to, April. Things like that are all included on the notes, and we can, pull up the exhibit here, and I can, we can go through all the general notes if you'd like.
The purpose of including that type of specifics is to give decision makers, right, an understanding of potential impacts, right? With some other SUR projects, right, the timeline is significant to the proposal. If you all could add or take off, right, I guess what I'm trying to say, if you had concerns that the timeline was either too strict or not strict enough, that's something that you could certainly discuss with the applicant, but there's nothing in the SUR approval itself that would necessarily limit it to a timeline.
So it's basically a framework and not a hard limit.
They're trying to let you know, right? The applicants and staff have put those in there to let you all know what the likely impact is, right? In terms of anything, right? Traffic or, how often would these types of things happen? It's right. It's unlikely that a wedding would happen every day, Monday through Sunday.
Understood, but to Nicole's question is that we're approving something with very specific language inside of the SUR. And so maybe the SUR language should indicate that it is not a hard limit or a framework for approximation for use based upon, best guesstimates or whatever the case may be, based upon, when the application's made, instead of, it kind of defines it, the language is kind of defining versus saying this is just an approximation based upon, and this is part of the criteria for the SUR.
Right, and I would add to that, when we're looking at referrals from the different agencies, I'm wondering if it was communicated to them that, that there could be a lot more weddings than just the ones that we've laid out, or, that it would be a very busy summer season, but then very slow in the winter versus like a spread out busyness.
Sorry, go ahead.
Yeah, I don't necessarily think that, the frequency changes the conditions and the request here. Looking at the things that we require, like the commercial entrance, providing the record of portable bathrooms, all these things that we're requiring, this is, if Elbert Public Health has a problem, they're requesting too much, maybe something would come up there, but, the framework is there to allow for this use. And I think, as Randy said, it's like, you're not going to see 7 weddings in a week.
But applicant was just saying it's possible that they might have 2 in 1 week. And
yeah,
if they have a busy summer season, then they might have a good amount in the summer.
Certainly, yeah.
So my question is back to what we're discussing. All of the information, I think, basically that I've seen in the packet about, 2 weddings or 2 weddings possibly in a month, the B&B maybe only being used 2 days out of a month. That's all narrative. I didn't see, or at least that's my opinion of it, I didn't see anything in the SUR, in the conditions of approval, that specifically says you can only use it for X. I think what we're approving is the ability for them to use their property for weddings and for a B&B, not how much, except maybe the hours of operation. We're not going to be, going until 3 o'clock in the morning type of thing. And you look old enough, you probably don't want to be up till 3 o'clock in the morning.
Not anymore.
Is that an accurate statement? Because if
I would say the use being requested is an event venue and bed and breakfast, period, use.
it's not a individual permit for an individual event. It's a wholesale, yes, you can use it for this activity.
Yes.
And you may find, even though you only want to use your B&B like 2 days a month, as Vance said, we don't have, his fault, we don't have housing out here. And we do have in the county lots and lots of events, through the summer, the spring, the fall, and I'm sure people are looking for a place to stay. So you may be busier than you wanted, Nick.
Thus, that 1 to 2 part-time workers.
Yeah.
That's somewhere in that, I saw Danny put that in there. That's right. Yeah.
Does that clear that? Okay, Bart's nodding.
Yeah.
Nicole, does that make?
Yeah, I mean, I would just say to staff, I think it made it confusing in the packet to see such specificity, 2 days per month, because that makes it look like that is what the request is, not unlimited. Or, just, like, here's a suggestion of what they think they'll need, but it really is approval for unlimited. That, I think, would have been more helpful, because when I saw, like, specific numbers and days and year-round, then I'm thinking, okay, they're asking for a much more specific use. Right. So that would be my response there. Okay, I just had a couple more comments here, questions. The on-site wastewater treatment permit, it looked like it was a provisional use. So I was just wondering, when does that transfer over to being not provisional, but like normal?
So until a larger system is installed, they must use the portable bathrooms for all weddings.
Okay.
Yes.
And is there a plan to do the bigger system?
Yeah.
Okay.
TBC, is that what, I forget. TBC came out and we paid them money to do all the soils tests. They have a pretty good solution to upgrade it to handle, again, your questions were great on, yeah. What if 100 people, 120 max, what if they showed up, flushed the toilet? The system would actually, the existing system would handle it.
Yeah.
But then he's like, will it handle it 6? Because your question was great. What if there was 6 weddings in a row? So he has a solution to upgrade it. It's not finalized yet. He's verbally said 30,000 to 80,000. And my point is, we don't know what that is yet. So we're still waiting for more data. We think once we have that data, we'll probably move to that route, because we're not really in favor of porta potties, to be honest with you.
Well, they have the fancy porta potties.
Oh, trust me, that's, so we'll use the porta potty system until we have some final bids back in, and then we will most likely not have porta potties out there. But that could be 6 months, 9 months, whatever it takes for these guys to get everything engineered, they say. So it's engineered they got to do, then a couple different bids, and then the actual work completed. So it wouldn't be this summer. I think we're going to be stuck with porta potties this summer, and then next summer, hopefully, no porta potties.
Okay, that's helpful.
But you're right, they will be fancy ones.
Got to see for the wedding. Let's see, I saw that for now you're not going to be getting the well ready for commercial use. Do you have plans to do that at all in the future?
100%, yeah.
You hope
so. We did, you guys may or may not need these, but we did put in all the temporary, permanent holding tanks that are going to stay there forever in the ground for this water. We did go to the town of, Elbert has their own water district, so we went to one of their meetings. They've agreed to not only sell us water, but then we explored some other ideas about just running a line. Their water main is literally just not even 1,000 feet down the road. So we'll likely tap into their water source and even bypass filling up this thing.
Oh,
that may happen a lot faster. Okay. That may even actually happen this summer. But in the meantime, so we didn't have to hold you guys up, we're like, we'll go ahead and spend the money, put the tank in the ground, buy the water from them, but realistically, we're probably gonna run a line. And they're happy to sell us water. I think they told us they have 2,700 acre feet. They have a tremendous amount of water, and so they don't mind selling us some water.
And they can sell water for commercial
100%,
purposes.
yeah.
Okay.
Even right now, so what they're selling to us is meant for our the commercial use. Mm-hmm. I think it's 500 gallons each time we fill up. But we don't want to keep filling up this thing, so we will get a line to them sooner than later.
Okay, thank you. I don't have any other questions.
All right, thank you. Next.
I would like to ask about the cottage.
Lovely.
My understanding is that, and I drive back and forth past that property all the time. I live just east of you guys. The cottage is a new building, as far as I know. I saw it go up. I saw the old shed get torn down. But did it come with the property?
Yeah, there's always been a building there. We just massively improved that building. So it actually had electricity in it. It had insulation in it. I'm not going to tell you that the best kids were living in that property like the previous owners, because the people we bought it from had no kids, but the owners before that, we've gotten all these stories. To me, it appeared as though it was definitely being a used building because it was insulated, electrified. It wasn't good enough for us, so we've actually fixed that thing up dramatically, front porch, back porch, to make it to where it's actually a full-fledged bedroom, a full-fledged bathroom in there, everything to make sure that if we need that, that's one of the 2 rooms. So back to the 2 rooms that we now have available, that would be one of them.
Okay, so
So basically a remodel?
Massive remodel on it, yeah.
I saw it as a tear down. I mean, I saw the whole building come down in your footprint. How big is the new cottage? Because the size, and the reason I'm asking is the size of that building, and I've been in it, the previous owners are friends of mine. It was a storage. So there wasn't anybody living in there with the previous owners.
Correct, not the previous, that's correct.
Right. So it wasn't a big building, but compared to the new cottage, which looks really nice from the road, it appears to be a new build, which takes me to the question of the zoning regulations and accessory dwelling units and how that fits in with the type of zoning that you have for this property. The only way, as I understand reading the zoning regulations, the only way to add another housing unit, and it wouldn't be considered the main residence, is as an accessory dwelling unit, and there is a whole zoning process to go through to request an SUR, a minor SUR, for an ADU. So I'm wondering if that cottage is appropriately in place, if it followed the zoning regulations to be put in place. And I'm kind of looking at Bart and Jen to see if you have any input on that.
Just a quick question for you. How is that pertinent to the current SUR requests that they're applying for?
I think it's pertinent because that building, from what I understand from your narrative, you're going to be using that also as part of the B&B. And as an accessory dwelling unit, you have to go through the building permits and pull all of that stuff. And there's requirements for that ADU. So I think it's a gray area, but I wanted to bring it up because I'm not sure if that building was properly approved to be there in the first place.
I could tell you what we did, again, in terms of improving it. Our desire is not to even have it be a ADU or AUD. We never intend, and you guys could put it in paper, we're not renting this out to people for a additional property on our property for people to rent out 12 months or 24 months out of the year. It's meant for the bed and breakfast. So the way, and again, we may have understood it wrong, but the way we understood it is if you're building another building on your property to rent out, like it's another housing unit, then you'd have to build or get an AUD or ADU. That's not what our intentions were, and that's not what they are today. It was to modify, which it is. It is approximately 4 foot deeper and maybe 5 foot wider. Same foundations are still inside of there. We just enhanced it because it was probably 80 years old. But it's not meant to be a rental property where somebody comes in there and lives 12 months out of the year. It's hopefully going to be used, and I know this sounds weird, but at weddings, we're hoping people will choose to stay overnight there. But we don't even know if that's going to be it because we know we're far out. When we've talked to some people, they're like they'd rather stay in a hotel back in Parker with their family than let's say, a bride and a groom. So as much as we're hopeful that somebody would stay there, we think it's more of a nice getting ready room for the brides. The two rooms that we're going to rent out, the cottage being one, we think that's a perfect bridal get-up room. But that's the way we understood it when we were dramatically fixing it up. So yeah, if you went there before, we have a 1919 Model T, and we actually were able to pull that into this, it's called a cottage, and there was still tons of room, and it was fully insulated. So there's quite a bit, and the Model T is not your traditional small one, it's actually more of a truck. So that's where we actually parked that thing until I was like, we could really use this for the bride or the groom. So me and my wife fight about whether or not the grooms would get ready in there or the brides would. I think the brides will get ready in there, but needless to say, we know it's going to be a great space for getting ready. We still don't know about the overnight. We're hopeful for that. We just don't know about that.
So just one more question on that. Did we do building permits?
No, I didn't. I just thought because I'm not building an additional unit, like I'm not building something to rent or to live in on the property, it's just an additional room.
But somebody from the public would be in there on a rental base, on a B&B.
We hope so, yeah.
Okay, thank you. I think I had some questions for staff. So there was, obviously, when you were doing all the referrals, there was a lot of back and forth between pretty much, most of the basic stuff. I saw in the referral there from Elbert Fire, they were talking about a finished basement. And if there was one and that would be used as the B&B, they had concerns. Is the basement finished, and would you be using that for the B&B part?
Great question. So Chris has been out, the fire chief, and we did finish the basement for our own family use. We did put in an egress window, but nobody ever will stay in the basement except for our family.
Okay, so
it's not available at all for the B&B or even for the wedding.
Okay.
But we did make it more safe for us.
The more room, the better in a small house.
But yeah, that was one. And then he's also has recommendations where to put different fire extinguishers around the property too.
That's always good. The parking area, I saw you have the 36 spaces. I've seen different numbers in the packet, what the maximum guests are. I've seen 100 max, I've seen 120 max. But if you've only got 36 parking spaces, do you have a plan for overflow? Heaven forbid everybody shows up in their own car. What would you do at that point?
Excellent question. The 36 is one design. There's actually multiple designs, but let's just stick with the 36 that they did. But if you look at that, there's actually different config. That's in multiple rows versus one row going down the middle. We personally like the one row going down the middle. Chris, the fire chief, liked the one row going down the middle. That would actually accommodate like 60 cars, 30 on each side. So that, although it's a nice plan, I wouldn't even, again, if Chris was here, because we walked it, and I think he liked the idea of a middle row. So that's one option, is we would configure the parking a little different. By the way, that's the best option for us. Second option is there is a tremendous amount of parking on the property. We just don't want it to look ugly. So believe it or not, up next to the 3-car garage, I mean, we easily put 10 cars in there right now. So not really even interfering with the church, not interfering with the circle driveway. There's room for a lot more. We just don't want them up there because we think it would take away from the prettiness of the church.
Okay, so because I did see in the plan you weren't planning on having any parking on the physical property.
Hopefully nothing ever. Yep.
But that would be your fallback plan, it sounds.
Fallback would be to the right of, or right below the 3-car garage. If we didn't run the center line, but we really like the idea of running the center line down the middle of that parking area.
Okay. And I think the other, Danny, I had a couple more for you, and it comes back to the water, and I understood what you said, and I know that, the water and sanitation district, yeah, it's a spitting distance. So if you think you're going to be able to hook up to them, and then you don't have to worry about a well?
Yes, that would be awesome. I mean, they've already said that's 100%. The only thing they didn't know was the legal process to physically, because there's a right-of-way. right away going down that ditch, so they were, do we go down the ditch? Do they go down the middle of the road? The good news is it's a water line, so it's not really huge. It can go up and down. So it sounded like that one was pretty easy. But yeah, we're kind of excited for that because then we don't have to transport water.
Yeah, and it looked like from the paperwork, there was a lot of back and forth and issues with the on-site well and what you could, because it's an old well, and
Yeah. That's why again, great job, Danny, because they had all these timelines up there. To us, it seemed like it was a little while, but the reality is I don't think it was any of you guys. It was just the fact that we had to work with these different departments to figure out what's the right solution. So
yeah.
maybe the next project we take on, we don't have that many issues. There are some other fun things we're planning on doing, and we hopefully don't have to, just depends on the property, right? So this one just had some unique things.
And I think just one more thing, so back to the bathrooms, and I understood with the porta potties, I did see in the narrative that you had put bathrooms in the church, because I know the church had nothing in it. How will those be used by the guests before you have the new septic in, or will they have to use the porta potties, or how's
Porta
that going
potties.
to work?
We're going to make them use the porta potties.
Okay.
I'm not saying in an emergency somebody couldn't use them because they're there, but right now they'll use porta potties
Until you get the other things in line.
Yep.
Okay, that's all I had. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you. Kyle?
Yeah, my, hopefully my only question is, how long is your term on your lease with Mr. Malone for parking?
That is an excellent question. So he's the one that actually approved it and signed it, which we thought was a miracle and pretty awesome. The way I understand it, he probably could cancel it any year.
How long is the initial term, though? Like, how long do you guys,
So it's
just
seems like
yearly?
Year after year, it rolls indefinitely, but I have a feeling, the way I read the language is they could revoke it. They gave me no indication they would ever do that, but my guess is that's still a trump card. If
If they don't like
they
it?
didn't
Yeah,
like
no, I
us, my
understand.
guess would be we'd have to figure out a different, and great question, but the alternative parking for us, when we were told no on County Road 98, was the school parking lot and then the track parking lot, and we would transport people back and forth. So we do have a workaround.
Do you
if
have a
John
backup
was-
plan?
Yeah,
Okay.
but he was so friendly. I mean, I'm told it's kind of rare that he would even lease land to anybody in the county or the state or whatever, so we think it's kind of a little miracle. And back to, and I don't know, Robert, if you guys always open, but I thought it was the coolest thing ever that you guys opened with a prayer. Sorry if that offends anybody, but like me, I wouldn't even think you do that in a county. So I think it's awesome. So we call it a major blessing that John even gave us the permission to lease the land.
Yeah, perfect. And I'm sure you dealt with Silver Spur, right?
Yeah.
So we
yeah.
dealt with, okay. Yeah.
But John's the one that actually signed it.
Yep,
So-
John will sign it. No, Mr. Malone signs them.
Yeah.
So you do have a backup plan if for some reason
Yes.
that goes south. Okay, perfect. That's all I had for you. Thank you.
All right, thanks. Dee Dee?
Well, something about sitting over here on the end, everything gets asked before. I had all these notes on the page, but I'm just going to say, okay.
All right, thank you very much. Oh, all right.
Do you plan on serving alcohol? And if so, is there a liquor license requirement?
Excellent question. We've explored it twice here with the county. I forget the gentleman. There's a process we can go through. We're not against getting a liquor license, but we're told it's much easier for people to hire a licensed bartender, pay those fees, and then they're allowed to come out to the property. So that's kind of what we're planning on doing initially, but I think we would like to apply, but it's not even on our radar right now, meaning could we actually serve the alcohol a year from now? If it takes a year to get that, we'll probably get it, and but I say probably. I don't know what's all involved in it. We're not against it, but right now we're thinking somebody has to contract that out that, carries a couple $1 million and has the legal right to serve alcohol, something like that.
I guess I would ask the staff, what is that requirement?
Liquor licensing?
I mean, if they're serving alcohol with a large group of people, is there a liquor license requirement?
Yes, there's a liquor license requirement for somebody to serve alcohol. Alcohol liquor licensing isn't done through planning. It's done in a different department. So I'm not the one to ask for the liquor licensing questions, unfortunately.
So it's really not relevant in this discussion then? Okay, thanks.
And I just wanted to have one clarifying question, because I know that in the zoning regs, it says that all special use by review permits are subject to annual review or as specified by the Board of County Commissioners. Is staff making a recommendation about something other than an annual review on this use by special review?
So that is always an option based on the regulations. Staff has only, when we felt it necessary, made a specific condition requiring review in a certain time frame, whether that's 1 year or 3 years or 5 years or whatever. For this particular request, we have not included a time frame. You all or the Board of County Commissioners could either add one, or the way it's typically been handled is if there was a problem, then staff or you all, I guess the county, could require someone to come back in to further review their SUR.
Okay, so expectation that there will be an annual review if there is an issue, and otherwise it will continue on.
Correct.
As approved.
Unless there was a change.
Okay.
Yes.
Thanks.
Any other questions or comments from the board? All right, at this point, I'd like to open it up for public comment. If anybody in the public would like to come up and first of all state their name and address and make any comment that they would like based upon this application. And also sign in, please.
And also sign in. I'll do that next. My name is Judy Willie, 9490 County Road 102, Elbert, Colorado. In reference, I think the bed and breakfast is a cute idea. I share some similar concerns. Nicole, to some of your questions about an SUR, I was at some of the meetings when they were stripping out the regulations with the previous Board of County Commissioners. I was told that SURs would be held to a higher standard with specific requirements, which has not followed suit for the past 4 years. So I truly appreciate your digging into this. As far as this particular submission, I read through the packet, have a few concerns that some people picked up on. The septic. If you look at the documentation for the septic, where they did their dig pits, that's currently being landscaped. So that would mean extraction of all the landscaping material. It did say, I read somewhere in the packet, that there are, the bathrooms in the church shouldn't be used, and that was from Public Health Department. So when we're talking about the conditions of approval, I would like to see some of these conditions that are mentioned fully called out in the requirements, the conditional requirements, so that there is a chance to follow up on some of these requirements. It's funny, I get up here and I do a lot of math during the day, and my math isn't mathing. Whether it's 36 or 60 parking places, and you've got 120 potential or more visitors or guests, you're still going to have a parking issue, whether it's shuttling. I am thankful that Public Works, the Sheriff's Department has said no parking on 98, because I think some of us experienced last weekend's track meet with the school, which needs to be fixed too. So one question I had too was the zoning regulations. Why wouldn't this be commercial? And then if we check that soils report to see if we need to push for even for the house, there was a concern with the septic, for the bed and breakfast. And what is the time frame for completion of some of the stipulations? So if we're saying it's okay for porta potties, how long do we let that go? If an SUR is approved and is stating specifics, like you said, that to me is what you just approved, is 120 guests up to May through October, et cetera. It is not open-ended. If you're submitting that type with some supporting, to your point, it should be spelled out in such a way that we're signing off and submitting those items. If there is a continuation to add a liquor license, how does that change this SUR? Wouldn't it change the SUR, because we aren't talking just the wedding venue?
Pardon me, please, that's 5 minutes.
That's 5 minutes?
That's 5 minutes. Do you have anything to wrap up with?
Well, I would just like clarifications, and I'm hoping that some of your work, not related to this, but some of the work with the regulations, the rework of the regulations, really takes some of these things. A bed and breakfast used to be in the county regulations a thing, that you had to meet certain requirements, and they're gone. Replaced with the SUR, where we can do anything here. We've experienced it firsthand, so I'm hoping that the Planning Commission and the county really does look at fixing our regulations. And that's it, I'll sign out.
Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Any other public comments? Would the applicant please come back and answer a few questions that were posed by the speaker, as well as any follow-up from the board? So the first question was with regards to, if I caught it right, the zoning, and this may be more of a staff question, zoning for B&B and event center as an SUR as compared to a more of a commercial zoning. You know, can you explain the historical and or the current rules and regulations associated with that?
Historical change?
Just historically, has it ever been for a B&B or event center, has it ever been a commercial zoning versus only an SUR?
I have not seen the commercial rezone for a B&B or wedding event center.
So I can't speak historically, but our current land use table doesn't allow a bed and breakfast in a commercial zoning district.
Oh, interesting. Okay. All right.
And, excuse me, but wouldn't that depend on whether or not the owners of the property or the B&B lived on the property or not? It seems like there's something about that where if they live on the property, work on the property, that it's in one standard, and then if they don't, then that becomes more commercial than if they're operating in
that sounds a lot like our home occupation regulations, right? You have to live on the property, and then different types of uses can be allowed as a home occupation. But the specific land use of bed and breakfast is only allowed with an SUR in agricultural and residential zoning districts per the land use table.
Okay, great.
The second question was that was brought up was with regard to the soils report and the current, if you want to say, the current condition of the existing septic system, you know, the tank and the leach field. Could you clarify what was brought up, saying that there's the potential for the existing system not to handle the existing residents or the current occupancy of the residents?
Yeah, happy to answer that. So I'll go based off of, and I could have brought in the owner of the company, that's who came out, and he's a well-established firm, I think it's TBC that we hired out of Castle Rock. It's one of your approved vendors for Elbert County, so we hired a qualified company to come out, analyze, dig the test pits. The test pits were dug in 2 different areas, very professionally. It wasn't like he came out with a shovel. He brought out a massive excavator, dug down on 2 different sides of the existing leach field. When he called me afterwards and while he was out, he's been to the property multiple times. He's never indicated, even with his report, it talks about, I think it's 2.5 people or something like that. It's a 600-gallon tank. The leach field is extremely deep. I'm trying to remember all these things. He felt there was no error whatsoever with what we have. But we also posed a question, both my wife and I, back to him. We have 5 daughters. So we asked him multiple times, raising 5 daughters on the property. We didn't, but if we were raising those 5 daughters on the property, would we have a problem? And there was never an indication there'd be any problems whatsoever to raise our 5 daughters plus us. That's 7 of us if we lived on the property full time. So it is our opinion, based on what he verbally told to us, walked the property many times, and then also put in the report, we have no issues whatsoever. The previous owners had no issues whatsoever, and they were just back at the property probably over the weekend. So we don't believe there's any issues based on soils tests, based on conversations with our existing system, and the depth of it is not even allowed anymore. So apparently when you build septic systems nowadays, you build them much more shallow. We have a deep one, and we have very good soils there. So I thought all that stuff was impressive when he did the report. And then to add to that, his concern was what happens if 100 people flush a toilet? Would the drain field allow, 100 people flushing, in his words, were 5 gallons. He talks about a gray area because the stuff you read in the reports all talks about a residential house, not a church building. So these weddings are going to be taking place in a church building. A church building has a totally different rating that they can use. We're not asking for a church occupancy. We're just asking for a special use to have weddings. But he started talking about numbers as low as 1 gallon a minute or 1.5 gallons per person because they're not staying on the property, they're not taking showers on the property, they're not using washers and dryers. So that my absolute emphatic opinion, and if he was in here, would be that he doesn't think we're going to have a problem ever. But it's a gray area because it's a zoned residential. We have a residential actual septic system that we thought we could say, hey, we're going to have 100 people flush a toilet. Anybody can do simple math. Gallons flush out 1.5 gallons on a toilet per minute. If you were to flush 100 flushes would be 150 gallons. If every single person flushed the toilet 3 times, that'd be 450 gallons. Our leach fields are 75 feet long. I forget how many rows wide it is. We're not concerned ever about there being an existing problem, but I say that to say again, we're in a gray area because we're not worried about residential. We're not worried about guests being on the property. We're not even worried if 100 people came on the property. But because we're not asking for it to be a church building, if we were asking it for it to be a church building and use it as a church, I don't even think we'd have to put in a different septic tank because we're not taking showers, we're not doing laundry, any of that stuff. So to use traditional residential rulings for the septic system we have, it's not really fair to us, but since we're using that, thus we're bringing in the porta potties. But we actually did amazing landscaping in there. It's all going to be perennials and annuals, so we actually haven't touched that. I mean, we've played with that field, brought in more dirt, got big piles of stuff, because if we put in, any of you guys come out to the property, we got amazing landscaping everywhere now, rocks, boulders, everything you could imagine. But that particular area we're still only using for, call it wildflowers, because it is our anticipation that we have to dig up, and it would cost us a lot if we put we had a bunch of great ideas for that area, but it's really just going to be a massive wildflower area until we get all these bids back to can we put in a much more robust system. But we actually may not to convolute things, but we may have to get real reports, which we're happy to do, bring back 6 months or a year from now, if we're going to upgrade the septic to actually identify the fact that it's not used for 120 residential people taking 120 showers a day, washing clothes 6 times a week. So thus our problem being a residential property with having a special wedding on it. So I know that was a long answer to that question. But we have a pretty big understanding because that was another one of the things that took a little while for us to get a good grasp and actually hire a firm to come out and do all that work.
So staff, is there any of that as part of the consideration for the SUR, or is that outside the, if you want to say, the lane associated with an SUR?
I think the bathrooms and the on-site wastewater treatment system, I think our solution is the portable bathrooms. I think that needs to be in place, and that's why he's required to submit receipts for every event that people are coming out there, because it's not sized appropriately to host. You know, the system in place is not sized appropriately to have that many people. So that's why my condition, our staff condition, is to provide receipts, and that was recommended by our public health department.
All right, very good. Last question, I believe this question would be for staff. And Danny, you kind of mentioned something about this, but with regards to a liquor license, that process and application is in a different department and not a subject of consideration in an SUR?
That's correct. And I would add that if these applicants chose to pursue getting a liquor license, this SUR would have to be approved first before they could even apply for that liquor license. So that would be a secondary step if they chose to pursue that.
Okay. All right. Any other questions? Did I miss anything based upon everybody hopefully taking notes for me? All right, I'll entertain a motion.
Yeah, I'll make a motion. I move that the Planning Commission makes a recommendation of approval to the Board of County Commissioners for case SUR-2024-7211, subject to the following conditions as recommended in the staff report.
I'll second it.
Let's do a roll call vote.
Diana Edstrom.
I'm going to vote no, and I'd like to quote the zoning regulation why I'm voting no. It comes back to that accessory dwelling unit availability. So it's Article V as in Victor, D as in David, and basically 1 and everything else under that. I'm concerned that that building did not follow the proper procedure to be put up in the first place, and without building permits, and the fact that it would be used for the public it's a concern for me. But I'm sure somebody else will look at that. But if you can get that in there, that would be great. Thank you.
Dan McCullen.
Aye.
Kyle DiNardo.
Aye.
Nicole Hunt.
I'm going to say yes, but I would also like to include comments that would be something that the commissioners would hear as they consider this. I personally would have liked to see a few additional conditions. One being that if the lease, the parking lease, were to ever end, that there would be a requirement that they notify the county. 2, that if a water line is connected, that they would contact the county, because that would, of course, eliminate the requirement to notify of water refills on the property. And thirdly, that the condition, there be a condition of approval for if there's a change in how sanitation is handled and a septic system is put in, that they would also be required to notify the county, because that would affect the condition regarding receipts for porta potties. Thank you.
Thank you. Dee Dee Schott Grace.
And I'm in agreement with Nicole. Thank you.
Van Sands,
Aye.
Robert Politic,
Aye.
6 ayes, 1 nay.
All right. Thank you very much. Hearing's now closed for that SUR. Just a quick question. Does anybody need a short break? A short break? All right. We'll take a short break and be back in 8 minutes. All right. Let's go ahead and open. I will pause. All right, so let's go ahead and open the public hearing for the Goodman rezone, RZ 2023-0026. Kelsey?
Good evening, Commissioners, those in attendance. For the record, Kelsey Lanham with the Elbert County Planning Department. And tonight I will be presenting the Goodman rezone, case number RZ 2023-00026. $254,00002. The property is just over 40 acres in size and is currently zoned agriculture. The applicant is Kathy Goodman, and she is requesting to rezone from agriculture to residential agriculture. A little bit about the background of the property. The applicant originally owned 320 acres. It was one parcel. She then went through the assessor's office to subdivide and create 8 40-acre lots. During this time, that is when the Freedom Valley Ranch subdivision was created. And the subject property for tonight is known as Parcel F within that subdivision. So in the next couple slides, I'll show the subject property with the red star. The property is located directly southeast of Sun Country subdivision and north of EC West. In addition, the subject property has historically been vacant. There are no structures on the property either. The subject property, like I mentioned, it's currently zoned agriculture with surrounding properties being zoned agriculture, residential agriculture, agriculture residential, or planned unit development, also known as a PUD. The closest RA properties, which is the zone district the applicant is proposing to be, are approximately 5.6 miles to the west along County Road 174. And the closest AR properties are catty corner to the northeast, less than 500 feet away. However, like mentioned earlier at tonight's hearing, at the April 23rd BOCC hearing, the commission approved the property directly north of this subject property to be rezoned from agriculture to residential agriculture. This property was the WF real estate that the commission heard a few weeks back. Again, and I've said this before, I just want to emphasize that the only difference between an RA and an AR zone property is one development standard, which is the minimum lot width. For an RA property, that minimum lot width is 200 feet, and for an AR property, it's 250 feet. Here's a snippet of their rezone exhibit. The property line is outlined in yellow, And the road named Winner's Circle is outlined in red. Again, the entire 40-acre parcel is requested to be rezoned. So looking at their timeline, their pre-application meeting was in July of 2023. Their community meeting was in August of 2023. This project did go through 3 referral periods, one starting in October of 2023, one in May of 2024, and the last one in December of 2024. This item has gone before Planning Commission or scheduled to go before Planning Commission a couple of times now. The original date was March 4th, but due to county closure, this item was rescheduled to the April 1st PC hearing. At that hearing, the commission requested that additional information be presented with the packet, and ultimately the commission decided to continue this item to tonight's hearing, May 6th. And as of right now, this project is scheduled to go in front of the BOCC. Oh, that is a typo on my slide. Sorry about that. It's scheduled to go in front of the BOCC May 14th, so next Wednesday. At the community meeting, there were 3 attendees outside the applicant and the Elbert County Planning staff. The main concern was water and where the water was being pulled from. Since then, no public comment has been received. And these are the referral agencies that reviewed and responded to the application. Per the last Planning Commission hearing, there were some referral comments that were needing clarification, specifically the Division of Water Resources, Colorado Geological Survey, and Engineering. These referral agencies were contacted after that hearing and were asked to provide more clarification on their previous responses. Those 3 agencies did clarify that there are no outstanding objections on the rezone application and ultimately approved of the rezone. These comments have been added to the packet in addition to all the other referral comments. Like I mentioned, there are no outstanding objections or comments from any of the referral agencies. The following review criteria shall be considered by the Planning Commission in reviewing all rezone applications. Those criteria are found in Article 3C4 of the Elbert County Zoning Regulations, and they are A, generally consistent with the goals and policies of the Elbert County Comprehensive Plan. This proposed rezone is consistent with those goals and policies. B, this rezone is compatible with the surrounding land uses. This rezone was found to be compatible with surrounding land uses. C, the rezone will not adversely impact public services. It was found by Rattlesnake Fire Department. They were a referral agency that they had no objections, and it was determined that this rezone would not impact public services. D, the rezone will not adversely impact the environment. It was found that the rezone would not impact the environment. E, the rezone will not create unreasonable traffic congestion or burden the existing road system. Public Works was a referral agency during the process and did require the applicant to construct the road throughout the whole subdivision. That road has been inspected and approved by Public Works since. There are no outstanding objections or comments about the rezone from Public Works. And finally, F, the rezone will not be detrimental to the present or future inhabitants of Elbert County. This rezone was not found to be detrimental to those in Elbert County now or in the future. And with that recommendation, so based on the review of the approval criteria and findings in the staff report, staff recommends approval with conditions of the Goodman rezone. The conditions of approval are, number 1, the applicant will be required to remove signs within 2 weeks of the conclusion of all notified meetings, public hearings, or decisions. Signs not removed within 2 weeks may be removed by Elbert County, subject to reasonable charges for removal. Number 2, the rezone will not become effective until all fees are paid, conditions of approval are met, and the rezone exhibit is recorded. And finally, 3, recordation of all appropriate documentation is to occur within 180 days of the BOCC approval. And that does conclude my presentation. The applicant is present tonight. Shall the commission have any questions? I'm also available for questions.
answer some questions, particularly ones related to the water question from last time. One of my degrees is petroleum engineering, which is half geology and implement of geological engineering data. So if that question comes up, I can bore you to death on that. The one thing that we tried to make every effort to work with staff and make sure that we fulfilled all of the requests that were made the last time when this, our request was continued. And one of the things, just on that water thing though, just to give you some comfort there, is I can get into the engineering detail if you want to be bored, but historically I spent 14 years on the Planning Commission, 8 years as a county commissioner, and one of the things, that language that I think you, Nicole, questioned last time, has been in every document, and I've even had my own water determined. That they put that in there every time because God didn't make all rocks exactly the same. And basically what the determination of the water availability is based upon statistical information. And what, if you really want to get bored, I'll tell you how to do a volumetric map. And what they do is when they get a well drilled, they have the thickness of the aquifer, they have the porosity in the aquifer, they have the depth of the aquifer, and if you use all that information, it tells you what the recovery factor will statistically probably be. So one of the things back when I was on the Planning Commission, and I was the chairman of the Planning Commission back then, is that one of the county commissioners called me and said, Grant, what would you do with this? And I says, well, what's the problem? And he says, well, some people are saying it's only 95 years, and some say it's 105 years and all of that kind of stuff. And there we were talking about a major subdivision. And he said, Grant, what would you do? I said, I just divide the number by 3. And then they got 300-year water. So if you're 10% wrong, it's only 270 years. And for major subdivisions, that's been used for a long, long time. But I feel pretty confident that the water determination by the State Water Board is reasonable within a statistic, and I've got a speech defect, is within a statistical boundary. The other thing that I wanted to brag about is when, after that continuance was made, both Kathy and myself have worked very hard to work with staff to make sure that we fulfilled the concerns. Now, one of the other things is, from what I was told yesterday, the 40 acres that is just north of what we're asking for here was approved, I'm not sure, what, 2 weeks ago or a month ago? All right, and when I say approved, it's recommended for approval by this board. So I think that looking at our application here, it's consistent with that. Now, I've got 3 pages of write-ups here. If you want to listen to them, I can. But most importantly, we wanted to make sure that we're honest, open, and working with staff. We wanted to make sure that we felt that we had a reasonable response to the questions that you all had at the last time and when it was continued. The most important thing is working with Kathy here, and she wanted me to help her when I was a county commissioner. I said I couldn't do it then. So we waited 3 months, and now she's had me helping her a little bit. But we wanted to make sure that we were following all of the rules as they exist. Now, this morning, just to make sure that I knew what I was talking about, I went and drove that Winter Circle Road. It is probably the best non-paved private road in the county. Even in my pickup, I could chew my gum. It was, it looks really well. And, but the thing, this is contiguous with the 40 acres to the north that has already been recommended for subdivision. The road, that big loopy road, is already built and accepted by the Public Works Division. In fact, it's pardon?
Road and Bridge, yeah.
Road and Bridge. In fact, what was this? 3 months ago, they went out and said, "Boy, this is a good road, but you need another ½ inch of gravel on it." So we put the other ½ inch of gravel on it. I noticed that there's a big power line out there. All of the utilities are going to be very, very convenient. I've talked too long. Is there any questions that you might have of us?
At this point, no, but we may have some questions for you.
Oh, okay. So Glenn Edwards would like to speak on our behalf, but he has to go to work. Can we let him talk quickly now? Otherwise, he just has to go.
As part of the public comment?
Yeah.
Yeah, I was going to say, at this point, I'd like to open up for public comment.
Okay.
And so anybody who would like to speak
Thank you.
With regards to this application, go ahead and stand up, state your name and address, and try to limit your comments to 5 minutes, please.
Yes, my name is Glenn Edwards. My address is 43422 Saddlehorn Drive, which is just down the road from this subdivision. I can't talk and write at the same time.
But Grant can drive his truck and chew it. And I've seen his truck. That would be the truck.
So my comment's going to be brief. I was raised here in Elizabeth. We moved here, my family, we're native to Colorado from Cortez. And we moved here in 1996. And my parents are also here. And I have 4 brothers. And us together, we built our own house. We bought one of the parcels in Sun Country Meadows at that time when there was nothing out there. And we built our house while I was in high school. That's kind of what we did. And it's been my dream to do that with my children. And because of the efforts that Kathy has gone through, I hope to have that opportunity. I have 4 daughters, and our goal is to build a house on Winter Circle. And I hope that you guys allow this to move forward so that we can start that dream, start that process. And as regards to water, we drilled our well in 1996, and it was recently inspected, and the water level is near the same right now as what it was in 1996 when they inspected our well, which is literally just down the street from where this is being put in. So that put me at ease because we are investing a lot of money into this, and I think it's going to be great for the community and especially for our family to be so close to my family now. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Is there any additional public comment?
Hi, my name is Donsa Edwards. I also live at 43422 Saddlehorn Drive. Right now I've got Glenn's family at my house. I really would like you to approve this. I'm excited to have my house back, but I'm also super excited to have him and my grandchildren so close. I have 5 sons, 4 of them live in the county, which is really a blessing to us as grandparents. So it looks like a really great spot with a great view of Pikes Peak, and I am excited for them to get moving forward on this project. Thank you.
Very good. Thank you very much. Any additional public comment? All right, so at this point, we'll close public comment. We'll start with you, Dee Dee. Any questions, comments? All right, very good. Next?
Nope, no comment.
Rolling along. Next.
I just want to thank CDS for getting the package all together and the applicant for working with them and getting that all squared away. So thanks, everybody.
All right, next.
I don't have much to say. I wanted to just say thank you to applicant and to staff for getting a super complete packet in with responses. And I know that the 2 applications that were up at the same time, April 1st, I think one of them just got considered sooner rather than, and you guys got the later slot. But I think had they been presented at the same time, we would have had, similar comments, which is thank you for a complete packet and for the responses from referral agencies. So I'm grateful for that. The only question I had, and this is probably more obligatory, but I just have to ask, with regard to signs staying up. Did they stay up, and were they updated so that the community members saw that it was going to be on the agenda? Because I know we got pushed back a good number of weeks.
Yes.
Okay.
So the big yellow signs, those have been up since February.
Yes.
And then from the March hearing, we put new dates on them to reflect
Yes.
April 1st. And then since this date, it was continued to a day and time certain. New dates weren't required. But
Okay.
those signs have been up since February.
Okay. Okay, well, I'm glad to hear that they have stayed up, and I think that's probably a conversation we should have with regard to zoning regs. I just always think it's better to be super clear, so if neighbors want to come and give support, they know, okay, it's going to be before the Planning Commission May 6th, and it's going to be before the Board of County Commissioners May 14th. It's not too much to update a date, and I think that always helps to make everyone feel like good notice for the community is good for the applicant, and it's good for the community. I have no other comments. Thank you.
All right, very good. Well then, I'll entertain a motion.
Yeah, I'd like to make a motion. I move that the Planning Commission makes a recommendation of approval to the Board of County Commissioners for case RZ-2023-00026, subject to the following conditions as recommended in the staff report.
I'll second it.
Do I need to take a roll call vote? No? All right, all those in favor say aye. Aye. All those opposed say nay. Ooh. Are we okay with that, Wendy?
I got it.
You got it? You got it. All right, very good. Hearing's closed for the Goodman rezone. All right. Does CDS need a few moments? Just yet, if you don't mind. Yep, not a problem, not a problem. The recorder's hot, just so everybody knows. Or as they say in radio, hot mic. Yeah. Just a few minutes. But if you, do you need it? You're fine? You're fine. Wendy, just so you know, I didn't touch the recorder during our intermission. Okay? Okay. Are we ready? Yes? All right, so we'll open up the hearing for the Pine Ridge Metro District Service Plan. So who's giving the presentation from our side?
Good evening again, Planning Commission. I believe the county attorney will say just a few words about this, and then this is a little different, right, than our normal land use review projects. CDS staff does send metro districts out for outside review by legal and financial experts, so that review has been done. They have provided a staff report in your packet, and then the presentation will be done by the counsel of the applicant.
Right, so as compared to normal, Graham won't be making a presentation on the financial aspects of it.
That's correct. He was not able to be here tonight. He is planning to be here for the BOCC hearing.
Very good. Thank you for that.
Sorry about that. Mm-hmm.
All right.
So as you can see, there has been a staff review. Really, there are a lot of things that we are looking at is the Metro District formation, what they're asking for approval for in compliance with state statute. I do expect that the presentation by the applicant will run through many of those things. We have looked at the statutory requirements. We are, as a county, and staff comfortable that these meet the requirements. I do know that our financial expert has also looked at this, did not flag any particular concerns. Really what we're looking for from that review is typically the planned infrastructure and what this will be funding capable of being supported by the plan. And that review indicated that it will.
All right, very good. Thank you, Bart. Would the applicant or the representative for the applicant like to get up and make their presentation, please? And don't forget to please state your name and address.
Good evening. My name is Suzanne Mincer. It's a tricky last name. It's spelled M-E-I-N-T-Z-E-R. And because it's a tricky last name, please feel free to call me Suzanne. I'm an attorney at the law firm of McGeady Becker Cortez Williams in Denver, Colorado, where I'm here on behalf of the petitioner tonight. The owner of the property is MF Investment Partners, and Mr. Marshall is the manager of MF Investment Partners, excuse me, and is here tonight to also answer questions in case my presentation doesn't answer any questions. Because there's several new faces on the commission from when I was here last summer, Jim and I thought it would be a good idea to just do a quick presentation on kind of metro districts in general and the historical context of metro districts, as well as specifically talk about this particular metro district. As Mr. Greer mentioned, we believe we have met all the Title 32 requirements. So the short answer for why metropolitan districts is because basically that's how public infrastructure gets financed in the state of Colorado. If you want folks to move to your town or county or municipality, they have to have houses to live in. In order to build houses, there has to be public infrastructure. So what do I mean when I'm talking about public infrastructure? I'm talking about streets, sanitation, water, some limited park and rec improvements. Why metro districts? Because municipalities, counties, the state does not have revenue to fund these public improvements. Sorry, this was sensitive earlier, and now I can't get it to change. Okay. Thanks. So first, I thought I'd start with the history. A lot of folks say that metro districts are new. They're not new at all. This concept has been around since the 1860s in mining up in the mountains. Special districts were used to finance infrastructure to get to mines up in the mountains. It was codified in the Colorado Revised Statutes in 1981. My firm, my partner, Mary Ann McGeady, all my firm does is serve as general counsel to Title 32 metropolitan districts. Mary Ann wrote a lot of the statute. This is all my firm does. We have never submitted a service plan to any municipality or county that does not comply with Title 32. Let's see, I talked about that. Sorry, Jennifer. There we go. As I mentioned, the Special District Act was codified in the revised statutes in 1981. This is a very brief summary of several legislative updates that have happened since that time. In 1981, they added notice and agenda requirements, very similar to what you guys have to do, at least 24 hours notice, has to be posted. In 2009, we are also subject to, same as any other local government, financial audits, as well as certifying our election results to the state. In 2013, we have to, the legislature passed some bills that we have to do special debt notices. When a district gets ready to issue debt, there has to be a special notice. When a water and sanitation district wants to increase their rates, there has to be a mailing and special notice to the residents and users of that water district. In 2019, and that actually may be a typo, I'm sorry, virtual meetings came out of COVID. And so the legislature during COVID changed the definition of a location of a meeting to include virtual meetings. We have found that makes it a lot more flexible for folks who want to attend. We are subject to open meetings laws, just the same as you guys are. In 2023, there was a whole series of transparency requirements that were passed. Those include things like having a website. Every active metro district has to have a website. It includes a disclosure. So anybody who's selling, any home builder who is selling a new home in a metro district has to have a special disclosure now that gets recorded on the property and also given to the homeowner at closing. We are also subject to annual reports. That said, the service plans that we have presented to the county in the past, we've always had an annual report requirement of service plans that my firm has done. But now we're required to do it by statute. And then last year, there were some covenant enforcement limitations. I've faded that out because the plan for this specific metro district is this metro district will not be doing any covenant enforcement related items. So that's why it's grayed out. That one doesn't apply to this district. So really, are they useful today and moving forward? Our belief is yes. It's really the most efficient way to finance public improvements in the state of Colorado, especially in places like the county. The county does not provide water and sanitation services, even on internal streets to the project. The county does not maintain those. They only maintain the asphalt level. So the metro districts are the entity who will take on those improvements and operate and maintain them, own them, operate and maintain them for the long term. Okay, so now to this specific project. I also wanted to explain to the commission what a service plan is. A service plan is analogous, to a city charter or a state or federal constitution. It defines the parameters within which we can operate. It tells us the limitations on what we can do, and it tells us what we can't do. So for example, limitations include the debt limit, the mill levy limit, and the fact that we have to do annual reports. It also says what we can do. I might have misspoken. What we can't do is we cannot exceed the mill levy limit, we cannot exceed the debt limit, we have to file the annual report. But what we do is it gives us the authority to install, construct, and finance those public improvements that I was talking about. So for this specific project, it is, I just wrote it down. It is south of Highway 86 and east of Legacy Ridge. There's going to be approximately 420 acres with approximately 186 single-family homes on 1 to 1.5 acre lots. This service plan allows this district, as I said, to install, construct, and finance the public improvements like water, sewer, streets, and parks. This district is anticipated to also be the water and sanitation provider for this neighborhood. As I mentioned in the earlier, we're subject to annual reports and all the same local government laws that the county is subject to. So open meetings laws, audit laws, public budget laws, local government budget laws. And as I said, this district is not anticipated to perform any covenant enforcement services. We are capped. The service plan proposes a maximum mill levy of 65 mills. That may seem very high to you, but the reason that is going back in time. The 50 mill limitation that people are used to came about in the 2000-2003 timeframe. At that point, the, excuse me, did I fast forward it? The annual assessment, the residential assessment rate was 7.96%. That has decreased in the years after that. It's currently 6.8% after a $50,000 deduction on your actual value. So just as an example, if you have a $500,000 house at the assessment rate that applied back in 2000 when everyone was used to the 50 mills, that was 7.96%. That gives you an assessed value of about $39,000. If you multiply that by 50 mills, the property tax is just under $2,000. It's $1,990. Today, a house that's worth $500,000 after that $50,000 deduction, that would be $450,000. If you multiply that by the current assessment rate, which is 6.8%, you get an assessed value of about $30,000 to $31,000. If you multiply that by 65 mills, you get the same amount of revenue as what I just said, the $1,990, excuse me. We're capped at an interest rate of 18%. We would never be able to issue bonds, but it's capped at 18%. That's what the law requires, that's the max you can have. Total debt limit of 70, we're requesting a debt limit of 70 million. That's because our estimated cost of improvements is about 45 million, and we need some flexibility in terms of inflation and interest rates. One of the questions that Grant had actually asked us is that 58 million, where that number comes from, if you look in the numerical plan, in the service plan that we had, if you add the par amount of the bonds, it equals about 58 million. And so this is showing that 58 million in today's dollars in 5 years at an average inflation rate of 4.7%, you get to that $70 million max debt limit. And that's just the history, the recent average inflation rates since 2021. And so we believe that that $70 million request is reasonable given the changes in recent inflation rates. In addition, before we issue debt, we have to privately place debt. We have to hire an independent municipal advisor to say the interest rates are reasonable for this district. It complies with all the conditions of Colorado securities laws, things like that. And I think that was it. I would just add that under Title 32, Title 32 does not require the petitioner to give notice of tonight's meeting. The county code does. So the county code, we did post signs on the property on April 15th. We sent mailers to the 1,320-foot radius property owners around the district, proposed district, on April 17th. The publication in the Ranch Land News was also on April 17th, and the proofs of that and the affidavits were submitted to the county last week. Just for the record, I'll just add that Title 32, subsection 202.2, there's a list of things that we have to show. We believe the service plan demonstrates the list of things. And so what that is a description of services that's in the service plan. So it's water, streets, sanitation, limited parks and rec, limited fire. When I say fire, we cannot provide fire services, but we are allowed to install the water lines that will serve a fire hydrant, for example. A preliminary engineering survey showing how the services are to be provided. We had a list of the cost of improvements. It was about $45 million. A map of the boundaries, estimated population, we have that, and the general facilities to be constructed. We would submit that under subsection 203.2. There's sufficient and projected need for the services in this area, that the existing service is inadequate for the projected needs, that the proposed district is capable of serving this area, and that we have reasonable ability to discharge the debt that would be issued to pay for the public improvements. And that's all I have.
All right, thank you very, very much. Would the developer like to make any comment?
I'll just add a few things. Jim Marshall, 4091 East Chestnut Court, Greenwood Village, Colorado. Just one correction, and Suzanne's the bond attorney. Okay, is that better? Just one thing I want to clarify. Suzanne is our Metro District attorney, and when she stated the lot sizes, they actually range from 1 acre to 3 acres. She was correct on the 186 unit lot count, and we do meet all the open space requirements for the county. There are a couple of things here. She talked about the $45 million in costs. The Metro District does not fund the entire $45 million in costs. Our funding sources there's 3 funding sources. 1 is the developer, 2 is the builder, and 3 is the Metro District. So the Metro District will not issue anywhere near $45 million on the initial tranche of debt. I also want to point out, I've just come through a period here where I've been developing in Colorado for 35 years, and I've developed close to 15,000 lots, and several dozens of Metro Districts. But over the last 6 months, we've refunded 3 bond issuances and issued 2 new bond issuances. The new funding, where we have limited assessed valuation, when you start a community, you have no assessed valuation. So you can't get an S&P rating. Your rates are going to be higher initially because you don't have any AV. And our rates that we just recently closed on were in the 6% to 6.5% range. One went out at 6 3/4. So those are a far cry from the maximum allowable of 18. And Suzanne said it. If interest rates were at 18%, we wouldn't be issuing any debt. It wouldn't be worth it. So interest rates right now are a little bit on the high side. I guess about 4 years ago, I refunded a couple of deals in the Parker area, project called Heirloom. And one of my other projects over there, we got 2% on the refunding, and that was S&P rated. We just refunded a deal in Elbert County, Gold Creek Valley. That was S&P rated, and that one, rates are higher right now than they were just after COVID, but that one went in around 4%. So the rates do come down over time as the AV builds out. And generally what happens, we try to size our districts to the point where when we issue bonds, and I'm getting into detail here that may or may not be easy to follow. But when we issue our bonds, we usually have call protection on our bonds. There's always call protection periods. And the call protection in every bond we issue on a non-rated deal is generally 5 years. So when the call protection burns off, that's the ideal time. And usually we try to size our communities and our districts to the point where we think we can be built out over that 5-year period. So when we go to refund, we're built out, we've got our full AV, and we can get our S&P rating. So there's a lot of thought that goes into this. This is not willy-nilly. We're just going to go issue a bunch of debt and hope we can repay it. That's not how it works. And I generally don't issue my debt until the home builder has actually closed on lots and is out there actually building infrastructure. So let's see, I think there was one other thing I had. Yeah, I think I covered the big stuff. I'm happy to answer any questions anybody does have. I guess just in Elbert County, we have between Spring Valley, Gold Creek Valley, and Legacy Village, we have 8 districts in those projects. So I've got a fair bit of experience here in Elbert County with our districts and performance. And one thing Graham did point out in one of our hearings not that long ago, I believe it was on, I forget which deal it was, but he did point out that all of our bonding districts are performing and that we're meeting our projections.
All right, thank you. At this time, I'll open for public comment. If anybody would like to come up and make a comment based upon this application, we'll give you 5 minutes, and just a reminder to state your name and address. Going once. All right, we'll close public comment, and we'll start with comments and questions from the board. We'll start.
Two questions. How many builders would you expect to be involved, and what is the projected time frame for building this out?
I'm actually glad you asked that, because the one thing I didn't mention is in my little talk is we are totally subject to economic upturns and downturns. And as I think everybody probably senses and feels right now, we're in a bit of a downward trend right now. Interest rates are still a little bit on the high side. Typically on a deal like this, because we have predominantly 1 acre and 3 acre lots, I'm currently negotiating with 2 different builders, one to do the large lots and one to do the smaller lots. We do anticipate that housing prices in this community will probably start around $750,000 to $800,000 and go up from there. It's going to be more of a move-up market. It's going to be a little more expensive than typically you would see at Spring Valley or Independence. It's going to be more in line with Wild Point, for anybody that's familiar with Wild Point. And Wild Point has larger lots than us. But the other thing I also want to make sure everybody's clear on, and we are going to do a central water system, and we are going to do a central sewer system. So it's going to have water and sewer service, which the district will maintain and operate in perpetuity. Suzanne also mentioned that we're not going to enforce covenants through the district. That is just a personal belief system that I have. I don't think you want to mix HOA covenant enforcement with metro districts. I think it's the worst idea in the history of the world. There's certain legal professionals in our market that think otherwise, but I think that history has proven that maybe I'm on the right side of that discussion. So, but to answer your question, probably 2 builders. We might actually do. There's an enclave area in the community where I'm thinking about maybe doing a custom builder program with multiple custom builders.
All right. Nicole?
I do have some questions. I guess first, my question is for staff. So I guess my first question is, I realize that there is a related project that is in the pipeline for this metro district. Is that accurate? Is that correct?
That's not correct.
Okay. Well, then let me just clarify here, because as I was looking at the pipeline, I saw something called the Pine Ridge Estates preliminary plat that's at the community meeting.
That's the same community.
Okay. So, so what we have there is that preliminary plat, and what we're talking about today is the Metro District. And I'm just wondering why is the Metro District coming before the plat? It feels a little bit like potentially the cart before the horse. But can you just, I don't know, is this something that, would you normally do a Metro District approval before we would talk more specifically about the plats and
Yes,
and everything
absolutely.
else?
It typically comes first,
Okay.
after
And
zoning.
after the rezone.
Right, zoning, metro district, then any type of plating, which is typically in multiple filings.
Okay, because I guess I've just experienced metro districts, and maybe it's just been amendments to metro districts, but amendments to metro districts and metro districts in addition to plats all at the same time. And I guess as we're talking about this community and how many lots are going to be there, what the tax burden or the, debt burden is going to be to these community members. I guess my first question really is related to I saw several different layouts of how the initial, I believe it would be, there were different schedules. So most of them at 5%. Are those suggested as how it will roll out, or expectations?
When you say 5%, are you talking about?
Interest rates.
Yeah, we don't know. I mean, interest rates could be 5%, they could be 6%, they could be 4%. We don't know. But what ends up happening is whatever the interest rate is when we issue the bonds, that dictates the sizing of our debt. So the higher the interest rate, the lower of our debt. The lower our debt was, the more money the developer has to put in the project. So Metro District is one source of revenue to help develop a project. We're always at risk. We're always at interest rate risk. The higher the rates, the less the debt. The lower the rate, the more debt. The lower the debt, the more money the developer has to put in.
Mm-hmm.
So that's how that works. But when it comes to rate, Nicole, we're guessing at it. It's an educated guess based on what we think might happen. And I don't believe we ran ours at 5%, though.
And Jim knows this better than I do, but to also answer your question, whether we issue $5 million in debt or $50 million, we're always subject to that 65 mil cap as adjusted. And so in the example that I gave you, on a $500,000 house, it's about $2,000 in property tax. So on a $1 million house, it's going to be about $4,000 in property tax.
That was going to be my next comment.
Sorry?
No, that was going to be my next comment. We do have the mill levy cap. We have a fixed amount of revenue that we're going to be able to generate over time. When we do a finance plan on the project before it's developed, we do a market study. It's a third-party consultant. Is it perfect? Never. But it's based on the market that we understand, the price point that we think we're going to hit, and the absorptions that we think we can get. Sometimes we do better than that, sometimes we do worse. The bottom line, though, is when we go to issue that debt, we are going to be capped at a debt amount that can be sustained only by that revenue. If we get a little bit behind in 2008, 9, and 10, I'm going to use a real technical term here, it sucked, okay? And there's not a district in this state that didn't fall behind in its debt service. The way our service plans are set up and the way our bonds are set up, the people that buy our bonds are big institutional companies like Invesco, Nuveen, the list goes on and on. There's probably 50 of them. These guys are big boys. They understand the risk. Our interest accrues. The reason that we vote, one of the reasons we vote $70 million, we'll never issue $70 million, but the reason we vote it is as long as our accrued interest stays below our total cap, we cannot be in default, even if our interest is accruing. So, in the 2008, 9, 10, 11 period was a really good example. We had districts that got behind on interest, but every one of those districts since then has caught up and actually got ahead, and we pay down the principal. So it's bonds are, and one thing we didn't talk about, our bonds are typically 25 or 30 years in amortization. And as I said earlier, they do generally get refunded when the district is built out because we want to take advantage of the lower rates as fast as we can.
Which is usually the 5 years
Yes.
that you were talking about. So I know I think it was the service agreement or service contract, the only place where I saw 18% as a max was in the event of default. Is that true, or could these loans also be, or the debt have as high as 18% without default?
First of all, our bonds, I don't think our default rates are that high on the bonds. That's our service plan that allows us to go up to 18%.
I just copied it directly. It said, in the event of a default, the proposed maximum interest rate on any debt is not to exceed 18%.
You stepped up to the mic, please. Thank you.
You're right, that's what the service plan says. The paragraph, the sentence before that is the interest rate is expected to be at market rates. And so to Jim's earlier point, when you're dealing with a dirt district, when there's not much AV, typically the interest rate is going to be slightly higher. And then typically what happens when the interest rates drop in the cyclical market, whether that's 5 years or 8 years later, we refund those bonds at a much smaller, lesser interest rate. But to answer your question, the service plan does specifically say in the event of default, it's 18%.
Back to the whole point of default, though. We have never, ever, I've never seen one of my districts go into default ever. We have, as long as, I made this comment earlier, one of the reasons we have the $70 million debt cap is as long as our accrued interest doesn't exceed 70 million, which would be really, really tough to do on a district this small, we cannot be in default. The service plan allows it to go to 18, but very, 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 very unlikely that would ever happen.
Okay. So just with regard to the 18% then, it just seems like in terms of language that that's applicable to default, but when it comes to market value, is it possible that it would go above that 18% as you were talking about?
It can't.
Market value. Okay.
And one other thing, Nicole, though, is the cap on the mill levy is the insurance policy for the homeowner. That cap ensures that, in Suzanne's example, you're paying $2,000. Now, if your house appreciates by 25%, yeah, you're going to start to pay a little more in property tax like we all experienced 2 years ago when we saw our tax bills go up by 35, 40%. Mm-hmm. But the good news there is your $500,000 home is now $650,000. And yeah, you're paying an extra $500 a year in tax. But personally, I'll take the $500 in tax if my house goes up $150,000.
Okay, well, and you brought up the maximum debt mill levy being a protection for the homeowner.
It's the mill levy cap that protects the homeowner.
Question, though, is related. I know that in the service agreement, it also talked about how that, I guess, cap shall not apply to the district's ability to increase its mill levy as necessary for the provision of operation and maintenance services to the users. Mm-hmm. So what kind of additional increases could those residents potentially see because of operation and maintenance?
Historically marginal, if that. Generally, our operational mill levy runs around anywhere from 8 to 11%. And that's the money to basically operate the district and maintain, it pays our legal fees, it pays our annual audit fees, it pays all the compliance fees we have with various associations that we belong to as a district. And I can't think of one district right now that I have that is any more than 11. The lowest is probably about 6 mills. No guarantee, but it's historic. Let's put it this way: we're not in the business to charge more mills than we need to. We're only going to charge what we need to cover our costs.
Okay. I understand. I think as I was reading through the language, there was, I guess, a $50,000. I think it was $50,000 that the builder or the Metro District was going to take out to like get things going at the beginning, but that was something that was also subject to reimbursement through the debt that's accumulated for the project. And was just wanting to ask, I mean, kind of a bigger question here is, we talked about that those who are putting in money into the project are the developer, the builder, and what was the last one that you said?
The district bonds.
And so as we look at this, I mean, is the developer not only, I think that the language said that like they would be getting paid back with interest. So they're putting their own money in and then they're getting paid back with interest on top of that. Is there actually any cost to the developer, or is everything simply being written off on the future resident for this project?
I'm going to put the developer and the builder in the same pot because we're the ones that are putting the additional funds in. And I'll use an example. It's not unusual for between the developer and the builder, let's just say that we issued bonds for $10 million. We would probably have at least $20 to $25 million that came from the developer and the builder. We have anything that's a public improvement is eligible for reimbursement by the district to the developer at some point in time. The issue is, though, that we've got capacities on debt, and that limits what our reimbursement is. So it's not unusual for us to have $20, $25 million in debt, in loans to the district or advances to the district that are eligible for reimbursement. We know we're never going to get it all. And in that example, we might get $4 or $5 million back when we refund the bonds, but we never get all of it. And our interest rates, and Suzanne probably can attest to this, I'm a little different than a lot of developers in Metro. I'm not institutionally funded. We make our own decisions. It's private capital, and our interest rates on our loans are typically below what the bank rates are when we lend the money. So we're actually lending our money at below rate interest rates, and Suzanne can attest to this too. I've refunded bonds, one recently. We call it Gold Creek Valley. It was called Retoro when we entitled it. We wrote off $450,000 in interest expense on that deal when we refunded the bonds.
I just wanted to clarify for you, Commissioner, on your question. The service plan does say for organizational costs, it's about $100,000, and that's to pay my firm, basically, to pay for the cost of the election. If the Board of County Commissioners were to approve the service plan, we then go to the court, so there's some court proceedings. So organizational costs could be paid back with debt. Operational costs cannot be repaid with debt because it would be taxable at that point. So there are funding agreements, as Jim said, with the developer that the operational costs will get repaid with interest. But to Jim's point, my partner Marianne and I actually had a person who is, I won't mention his name, but it's a Metro District critique, and he said to us, you should really have your developers enter these agreements with like 12% interest. And I fell out of my chair because we would never do that. Jim has usually 6 to 8% interest, which is market rate. Some that are 4. So it depends on the project. But we had someone say that to us, and we would Jim would never do that because it's not fair to the homeowners. It's so to clarify your question, the debt can repay the organizational costs. It can't repay operational costs.
Okay. I had a question just related to, engagement. I know that, making sure that these service plans benefit the best interests of, those who they are supposed to serve is one of the criteria set out in Section 32. And just wanted to have a conversation about makeup of the board and whether or not how soon actual residents who are purchasing homes are going to be on these boards, and whether or not they're going to potentially constitute a majority, because it is, of course, their taxes that debt is being paid by.
Yep, no, that's right. Again, I think I've formed 45 districts, and one of the toughest things that we actually find is that it's difficult to find homeowners that actually want to be on the boards. And this past election, well, today's the election. And I have a couple of boards. Gold Creek Valley is a good example. We had some homeowners that wanted to get on that board 2 years ago. And I appointed one homeowner, and the other 3 got elected. I am the only non-homeowner on that board. Gold Creek is down in Elizabeth, behind the Walmart there. And I'm still on that board. We just refunded those bonds. We got a really favorable refunding. The homeowners voted to approve the refunding. I have districts where I can't get off boards that I want to get off because we're done. And once in the beginning of a district, we typically are we're building stuff and we're busy. We've got a lot of stuff going on. But once the money in the project fund is exhausted, now we're a debt service district. We're just servicing debt. It's pretty mundane. We don't enforce in covenants, so it gets pretty boring. And those are the districts that nobody really wants to step up. I have a district in Parker right now that I stepped down from. We turned it over to the homeowners. There's 5 board seats in a Metro District board. And this one particular district currently has 2 homeowners. They can't even find 5 homeowners to sit on that board. Nobody wants it. And, I don't own property in the district anymore, so I'm not eligible. And the district still owes me a little bit of money, but it's not a big deal. So we do encourage it. I've got some relatively new boards where we've spent the project funds, but we haven't refunded the bonds yet. And every once in a while, I run across a homeowner that's interested, and we put them on the board. I like to have homeowners on the board because I think it's another level of transparency from my standpoint that we're not doing anything inappropriate. And the sooner I can get a homeowner on the board, I actually think that's a good thing. And I'm a little unique. Most developers don't operate the way I do.
Just to give some more color, the statute defines an eligible elector as any individual who either resides in the district or owns taxable real or personal property. So as soon as someone buys a house, they are an eligible elector and therefore eligible to sit on the board. As Jim mentioned, today was election day. Special districts are on a 2-year staggered election cycle, and so every 2 years there's either 2 or 3 positions up for election. And the new transparency laws that were passed in 2023 require us to post those on the website as well as mail them or email if you're interested in serving on the board to get it in by the deadline. But so as soon as someone lives or owns property or resides in the district, they're eligible to serve.
Does the code require it?
Say that again?
Does the code require?
Yeah, you have to own and you have to be.
No, sorry. Does it require homeowners?
No,
homeowners be members of the board.
It's if they want.
Optional.
It's if they want to be. And to Jim's point, every project is different. I have boards where everyone wants to serve on it, and there's no developer representative left after there's a certain population. I have districts that have existed since the early 90s that Jim is still on the board because literally no one wants to serve. So it really just depends on the project, and we don't have a way to predict that.
Mm-hmm. I mean, I would imagine that it's considered mundane until, new debt is issued at a very high interest rate, in which case probably many property owners would be interested in being able to have a vote on that.
Let's talk about that for a minute, too. First of all, when we issue new debt, initial debt, we know it's going to get refunded usually in 3 to 5 years. If we do hit the higher point of an interest rate cycle, we're motivated, obviously, to get it down faster. And the build-out of the community is what dictates that. We don't like to issue debt when the interest rates are excessively high because we get crammed down on our principal that we get, and that doesn't help us a whole lot. So typically, I've had districts where I've actually waited until we got a more favorable interest rate environment. When we refund the debt, because it's a rated debt instrument now, we always get lower rates. And the nice thing about our debt is it can be refunded over and over and over. So if rates, let's just say 5 years from now, in that deal I just refunded a couple weeks ago, if all of a sudden I can get a 2% interest rate in 4 or 5 years, we can refund it again and take advantage of the lower rates. I have never refunded into a rising market. I've generally refunded into decreasing markets. So we have a lot of control over when we refund. There's nothing out there that says I absolutely have to refund in 5 years. If I'm going to show my age here a little bit, but in 1981, the mortgage rate, my mortgage on my first house in 1980 was 13.75% interest. 1 year later, fortunately my wife and I got married when we did, and we bought that house. 1 year later, 20%. Didn't last long, but it took years for that mortgage rate to get back down to 10%. And I'm not from Denver, but I remember I came to Denver in 1989 and started my development business here. I remember headlines in the Denver Post the day that the mortgage rate went below 10%. And that was probably about 1994, 1995. You would have thought that everybody won the lottery. Today, if you got a 10% mortgage rate, you got screwed. Another technical term. But it's, we've gotten very, honestly, when I didn't think I'd ever see 5% interest rates again on debt, on mortgage. And when that happened, it was like, wow, this is phenomenal. And then when we hit those 3% a few years ago, that was incredible. So we're not going to see 3% interest rates again on mortgages, but and I'm getting way off scope here, but.
Okay, well, thank you for that. And I guess I'll just end this conversation with the comment that I would love to see a commitment in the service plan about getting homeowners onto your board as soon as possible. I don't know if that's something you'd be willing to consider, but I personally would like to see that as a commitment to transparency of the organization. My last comment really has to do with a broader scope. I understand that our housing assessment has estimated a need for around 3,000 homes over the next number of years, and that we've already got about 9,000 homes in the pipeline. So a broader question I guess I have for staff is, I'm wondering if Elbert County is not experiencing a housing crisis right now because we've got all of these houses in the pipeline, why are we creating a metro district and another community for 140 some odd homes when
86.
we already have more than we need?
186.
Thank you, 186. When we already have almost 3 times as much as we called for in our housing assessment.
I'll let staff respond, but I'd like to respond to it too. The bottom line, there's 9,000 zone lots. You got EC West, you got EC East, you got Morstead, you got a few other projects out there. When I did the Canterbury project in Parker back I started it in 1992. I was zoned for 2,850. I was zoned for 4,800 lots. Sorry. I ended up building 2,850 lots in a golf course. It took me 20 years to build 2,850 lots. COs last year in Elbert County, I believe, were 235 COs. Just because you get a project zoned for 2,000 or 1,000 or 3,000 or 500 or 186, it takes years to build these things out. Sometimes 10, sometimes 15, sometimes 20. Tim Kraft's going to be 100 years old when EC West and EC East are built out. This stuff doesn't happen overnight. There's a limited amount of demand in Elbert County, but the other thing from a home buyer standpoint, we all want choice. We all want, different products. We all like different things, and different projects cater to different needs. Again, these projects, like Tim's deals especially, 5,600 lots, that's going to take 30 years to absorb, at least. So, and I'll let staff comment, but those are my 2 cents on that.
Yeah, I guess the one thing that I would add is we have run some of these numbers. I don't have them up at the moment. But Mr. Marshall is correct. We have a number of projects that have zoned for a certain number, a maximum number of residential homes. Only a small percentage of those have actually been platted, right? So they're not buildable. They're not even lots right now. They're simply, right, zoned. The land use is there. So there's no guarantee, right, that those will come through the process and be platted in the next year, the next 5 years, the next 10 years. So I guess I would just want to clarify that statement about sort of homes in the pipeline. That's not 100% accurate. They still have to go through the platting process to even be eligible to pull a building permit.
And from a development standpoint, we generally don't like to plat much more than we think we're going to absorb over the next 2 to 3 or 4 years. And one other point on my project, the 186 deal, Pine Ridge, we believe there's a hole in the donut out here right now. Wild Point is pretty much built out. There is not a master plan residential community that I'm aware of right now with 1 to 3 acre lots with central water and central sewer in the county anywhere. I can't think of where it is.
All right, thank you. I have no more questions at this time.
You're up.
Hi. I did have a couple of questions. I think the first one, I was at a concept plan hearing that the BOCC had a while back for the development that is going to be across from you, or maybe across Fox something or other. And the gentleman who was the developer was asked by the commissioners about like a joint water plan because of all the concerns in the county about water availability. And he had mentioned that he had been speaking with you about the possibility of getting into your water part of the Metro District. And I was just wondering if there's...
No, he would not get into our Metro District. That's George, the anesthesiologist / developer. Okay. The bottom line is I have talked to George. There are, and I've also talked to Wild Point. There are benefits, and it's probably more likely with Wild Point, but I would work with George on this too. We're going to probably drill 2 wells at Pine Ridge. We'll have an Arapahoe and a Denver, so we've got our own internal redundancy. But there are benefits for us to have a relationship with the Wild Point Metropolitan District and maybe even Georgia's Metropolitan District. He's going to have to drill at least 1 well for what he wants to do. I would suggest he should drill 2. But it doesn't hurt because of the proximity of those 3 projects for each of us to be able to help each other if for some reason they have a failure with equipment, a pump maybe isn't working right. We're also going to have some storage out there too. And so yeah, we have talked to George. We do not have anything in writing. We're kind of curious to see what he really ends up doing, what he gets approved, and what he can put together. He's not, he's a smart guy, and he's He's a nice enough guy, but he's not very experienced at what he's doing right now.
Okay, thank you. In your packet, it was talking about the mill levies, and I understand the 65 mills, but could you explain to me the part where it talks about the mill, if I understood this correctly, the mill levy could be raised if the aggregate debt of the district is equal to or less than 50%.
Right.
Yeah, can you, yeah, what's that?
Typically, yeah, if we get to a point where our ratio of debt to assessed is it below 50? Yeah. If we get below 50, we're at a very, very low risk position in that district. Typically, when we get 50% to debt to assessed, that means we've paid down a boatload of principal. I'd probably submit that it's not likely that that would happen real quickly. Generally, the homeowners are in control of the district at that point, and what that does do, when your debt to assessed is 50% or less, all of a sudden your bond rating goes up, your interest rates go down. So if you, and it's a homeowner decision typically at that point to actually raise the mill levy because they can get much lower interest rates and pay their debt off faster.
Does any of that have to do with if there was a huge drop in the housing market and the assessed values of the homes would then impact how much you're getting from that mill levy and the debt payment? Does this relate to that at all?
No, not really. Gallagher is the adjuster. That Gallagher adjustment that Suzanne talked about earlier, in her example where the state's assessed percentage drops from 7 point. Actually, when I first did my first deal, I think it was close to 10%. And now we're down to 6.8%. So to be tax neutral, revenue neutral on our taxing, now that the percentage is down to 6.8, the mill levy, that's why the mill levy went from 50 to 65 over a 15, 18-year period. But no, I don't think that's directly related.
I would just also add, although an unlimited debt mill levy sounds really scary, the real life example using gyms is that when you get to that point, your mill levy actually goes down. And so in my districts that I represent that have met that, instead of 50, they're imposing 25 or 18. So it's counterintuitive. So once your credit is so good, to Jim's point, you're actually imposing less mill levies than the 50, or in this case 65. It's more like 20 or 18.
We refunded a district here a few months ago where we do have homeowners involved, and we had the opportunity to lower the mill levy 5 or 6 mills. The homeowners decided not to lower the mill levy so they could pay the debt off faster.
Okay. And could you explain one more thing? What happens after this? Like, what's the next steps? The BOCC.
The next step for us is to go to the BOCC with the exact same presentation. And we have, as Nicole mentioned, we have submitted our preliminary plat for review. That will probably take a few months to get through the back and forth. In our case, we're doing central water, central sewer. We're dealing with the Colorado Department of Health and Environment. We're dealing with Colorado Water Resources. We're dealing with Fish and Wildlife, U.S. Fish and Wildlife. I don't think we're going to have to remap the floodplain with FEMA on this project, but I'm not 100% sure yet. People ask me, when they ask me what I do, I tell them, and I say, I deal with local municipalities, states, federal government, U.S. Fish and Wildlife, Corps of Engineers, FEMA, the EPA. What could possibly go wrong? Yes. And it takes a long time. It does take time. So process, though, is BOCC for this, preliminary plat with you guys, and then BOCC, and then final plat, and then we're finally ready to. The other thing I remind people all the time is just because we got approved, All we got the right to do is find out whether we're right or wrong on our timing in the market. And I've had projects where we've had to sit on them for a while. I've had projects that have developed almost twice as fast as we thought because of the economy. So risk in this business for sure. That's why we've got caps on our mill levy. That's why we do what we do. And so there is a lengthy process here. We're probably, I would guess, at least 18 months away from being able to turn lots over to a builder and actually start development and issue bonds.
And go ahead.
Just, I wasn't sure if you were asking, were you on the development side, Jim's answer, on the Metro District side, if the BOCC were to approve the service plan, because the district does not yet exist, we then have to go to the court and file a petition and say, please create this district, call an election to create this district. The election goes forward. We've missed the May timeframe, so we would be going to election in November. And then assuming the electors agree to form the district, we go back to the court and say, please enter an order creating the district. That gets recorded, and then the district exists.
Okay.
So technically, your action and the BOCC action does not create the district. We still have to go through the court.
Okay. And I've got one more question for you, if you could hang on. But Jen, where is the preliminary plat right now? The last thing I saw looking at the pipeline was it was still it had had the community meeting, but I didn't see that it had moved on to the application received, if you will.
I believe it just came in recently.
Okay.
It'll be updated on the next development projects report.
Okay.
It was just submitted recently. We've got to go through all the referral processes and responses to that. And the county will not schedule a planning commission hearing until we've resolved all the outstanding issues.
Okay. And where does the development plan fit into that whole process?
The PUD?
No, because you're not doing a PUD from my understanding, right?
We actually recorded a PUD, yeah.
Okay. I thought we recorded this as RA1. I didn't see a PUD resolution, but I could have missed it.
Zoned R1.
I thought we did a PUD on, anyway, we did get through the zoning process.
Yeah,
Whether it was
I did, and I did see
I think we
that.
used the R1 zoning. You're right, I'm confusing it with something else.
Well, you've got a lot of balls in the air.
You're right.
But there is there not a, and I might not be using the right word, a development plan to develop, development plan, which would then give us more specifics on.
We'll be developing a development plan concurrent with the plat process to, we always have there's always a subdivision agreement. We have, like Spring Valley, we have a development agreement. There's things here we haven't finished yet because we're still in the platting process.
Okay. All right. That's all I have. Thank you.
Thank you. Next?
I don't have anything right now.
All right.
I don't have anything right now either, Jim. I just wanted to make one little comment. I have been so against these metro districts, just, over the years. I see that they're a necessary evil for everyone. But I think I'm with Nicole in the thought that keeping those costs down for homeowners is so important, because I worry all the time that it's setting them up to fail. But you have explained a lot of things tonight that have somewhat eased my mind a little bit on things, and I really appreciate the fact that you don't do covenants, and I don't think everybody realizes how big that is, because I know that there's, do you know of anybody else that does that?
There's some developers that don't do it. The people that generally do it are the big publicly traded builders, because they think it's easier. It's one less. They don't have to deal with HOAs, and their argument is that the equivalent of an HOA fee is tax deductible, but the HOA fees are relatively minor, and that tax benefit is so insignificant versus the ability to create an HOA and have homeowners on that HOA board that actually make decisions for themselves. And like I said, I'm a little different than a lot of developers, but I'm not the only one that does it the way I do it. And there's really good reasons for it. So
few and far between. I know that for sure.
yeah. And Dee Dee, you made some good comments there. I understand there's very, very, very few metro districts that have ever failed ever, and there have been a couple of examples, and they're the ones that you read about in the Denver Post, because the developer absconded with funds, which is a federal offense. It's fraudulent. You got to be pretty stupid to do stuff like that. And these districts, the nice thing about Elbert County and even Parker, I developed, I guess, about 5,000 lots in Parker, is you have choices. You don't have to buy a house in a community that has a metro district. Nobody's forcing you to buy a house in Pine Ridge or Spring Valley or Independence or Gold Creek or Legacy. And if you're adamant you don't want to be in a metro district, don't buy a house in a metro district. And Suzanne covered it earlier. The state requires us, and we were doing it anyway. We already had our websites up before the state told us we had to. We're not idiots. And we also disclose it. I go back to the 90s in Canterbury, and I had my builders disclosing in our contracts that we had metro districts and that you were buying a home in a metro district. We all know that most homeowners don't read anything. They don't read their covenants. They don't read diddly. And then when something happens that they didn't expect, they say, whoa, we didn't know about that. Well, if you had read your stuff, you would have. But so it's a choice. It's a choice. Nobody's forcing anybody to buy a home in a district. In Elbert County, it's 93% rural. And even, we talked about density earlier. Even when that stuff's all built out, and let's just say it gets built out expeditiously quickly, and in 20 years it's all done, Elbert County is still going to be 91% rural. This is always going to be a predominantly rural county. It's the nature of the county.
Well, from your lips to God's ears, I'll tell you.
I've said that publicly many times.
Yeah. Thank you very much, Jim.
I just have one follow-up question to what you said. The fact that you were saying that buyers have options or choices to not buy in a metro district. Are you aware of a builder or developer who's building large scale like you are without a metro district?
No.
So do they have options?
Well, you do, because you can go and buy a 5-acre lot somewhere. Elbert County is a great example. Look at Sun Country. Those are all 5-acre lots. There's Greg Boone is selling north of Spring Valley right now. He's selling 35-acre tracts. You've got choices, and they're all over the place out there.
But no new developers who are.
If for me to come in and do 35-acre lots, that's not anything I want to do. That's not creating a community. And anything that I do will be.
Well, I just beg to differ that 35-acre lots aren't creating community, because that's what the majority of.
No, okay, that was a bad statement on my part. It does create community, but it's not. It doesn't have central water. It doesn't have central sewer. A lot of them don't even have paved roads. And you've got your wells, you've got your septics, and maybe you've got crusher fine roads, maybe you got dirt roads. But I'm not aware of any developer who is building on scale with central water and central sewer that doesn't have a metro district. So yeah, you're right on that.
All right, team. Any additional comments? All right, I'll entertain a motion. Microphone. Van, Mike. Yep.
I make a motion that we recommend approval of
Pine Ridge Metro.
Pine Ridge Metro District to the Board of County Commissioners.
All right, can I have a second, please?
Second.
Do I need a roll call vote? No. All right. All those in, yes? Yes. All right, roll call vote, please.
Okay, I have a roll call vote. Diana Edstrom,
Aye.
Dan McCann,
Aye.
Kyle DiNardo,
Aye.
Nicole Hunt,
Nay, and I'd like to just clarify why. I am concerned that in section 32.1.203 E, that this service plan as proposed might not be in the best interests of the area in which it's supposed to serve, particularly the residents. I'd really like to see commitment from the developers about including homeowners, actively including homeowners very soon in the process, and so that their interests are protected as soon as possible. That's why I'm voting no.
Dee Dee Schott-Grace,
Aye.
Van Sands,
Aye.
Robert Politek,
Aye.
you have 6 ayes, 1 nay.
All right, thank you very much. All right, hearing, the public meeting is closed on the Metro District. I'll entertain a motion to adjourn.
So moved.
And I second it.
All those in favor? Aye.
Thank you for jumping in there. So thank you for jumping in there.